Dating has become a category that basically did not exist in 2014-15 when we started. People used to hide Tinder in a folder, inside a folder on their phone and never admit, but they used it. Like we had like explosive growth.
The reality is that a lot of people I am surrounded with are finding partners for life on matchmaking apps, right? So technology has solved that problem.
A lot of us met our spouses way before these apps started. So there was no choice. So you just had to sort of pick the person either who's in your college or in your coaching class or whatever and move on with it.
Now I purely seek companionship, but don't be a headache, you know. Be a companion, be a friend, be cool.
इंडिया में एक प्रॉब्लम है ना जो डेटिंग को लेके कि लव मैरिजेस तो एस्पिरेशनल है बट डेटिंग हैज बीन अ टैबू. देयर इज नो वे टू डू अ लव मैरिज विदाउट डेटिंग.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Podcast. Today we're going to talk about the business of love, all things matchmaking. And I have a crash course here with me. Everyone who's involved in this industry. There's Jeevansathi, there's TrulyMadly, there's Tinder, and there's someone who perhaps uses all of these apps. So thanks guys for joining me. So I want to start by saying that I have never used any of these apps. That's how old I am. But Mallika, what about you?
So I started with Tinder, of course, and I won't lie, like initially I was just looking for some fun, you know, nothing serious. And I used to, back in the day I used to work like in an office and I'll be like, I don't like to go clubbing. I'm at that age where I'm, you know, nearing my 30s and I don't feel like just going out and meeting people. But I do need to meet people and I'm at work the whole day. Now, how do I do this? This has to be scheduled properly.
This was in which year?
This was 2015 is when I started. And don't ask me how old I am. So, and that's when I started and I was like, you know, I just want something that can cut to the chase. I don't want to get into this, I am so sweet, my best friend hai, to mera kaat ke isko dekh lo and all that. I don't want that. I'm like, I'm here, you talk to me and let's just talk to each other and let's see where this goes. So that's how I joined Tinder and I had some fun. Then I had one serious relationship also through that. But the thing is, when that relationship began is when I moved to Mumbai and I started getting recognized. So I couldn't be on the apps anymore.
And what
now
about now?
Huh?
What about today?
I'm on that app where I'm on Raya, yeah. So, though the thing is, the algorithm with Raya
मैंने
is
सुना
very
सब ऑस्ट्रेलियन जर्मनी
हाँ मतलब Tel Aviv जहाँ मुझे जाने का कोई शौक नहीं है अब
इंडियन कम मिलते हैं.
हाँ like it's just very random. The algorithm is showing you people. I think they just picture me as some jet setter, which I'm not. Like I'm barely getting.
But isn't that a problem with Raya then? Because everyone's kind of like hustling over there.
Some people are meeting people. I have no game in life anyway. So like for me, if I'm seeing 10 people, then out of which nine require a visa. So I'm like, hello, if it requires pajamas and pants only, it's a big roadblock. So visa lagega to hum to mil hi nahi payenge kabhi. And I've not thought of like marriage in the arranged sense ever in my life. Though I think of it now, like not because ki अच्छे लड़के निकल गए and all that, but I'm saying मैं games नहीं खेल सकती यार. मतलब games नहीं हो रहे मुझसे. या तो आप सब आओ and we're like, hello, आप में से जिसको interest है, come, let's meet, let's chat. But then I don't even know if I'm cut out for marriage. So
I joined Tinder in 2015. People used to hide Tinder in a folder, inside a folder on their phone and never admit, but they used it. Like we had like explosive growth to basically how people meet. And, you know, 2/3 or more actually, nearly 70% of all relationships start online. That includes elsewhere on the internet, but like a 50-60% of that is on dating and matchmaking apps, and the rest 30-40% is everywhere else on the internet. But online is how people meet. So it's become normal, it's become default, it's almost become almost boring. Nobody's gonna react that you say, oh, I met on Tinder, or I met on Bumble, or I met on Shadi, or met on TrulyMadly. That's how people meet. So like that's the change that happened in actually relatively a very short amount of time.
So how big is the industry right now? What, 80-90 million users?
You know, like 150 odd million single people in this country who have a smartphone. So single defined as over 18, not married.
Yeah.
Right? That's a large chunk of people. And lots of people still who, you know, don't still have the smartphone. That like putting a smartphone, not just owning it, but also going to be using it or data. That's my qualification. So that's the size of the market. So it's still some room to go.
By the way, have any of you used dating apps? Okay.
I have profiles, but I got married before Tinder.
What about you?
No, I got married. Actually, I found somebody way back in college.
Okay.
So never got a chance. Dating apps weren't around then.
Yeah.
So you missed that whole phase.
Missed the bus. But I think it's quite empowering.
He says that with a lot of regret, you know. Missed
Yeah,
the
no,
bus.
I said it's because it's quite empowering. You know, most people don't end up finding somebody who they would eventually get married to that early in their life. And you know, this gives you that choice that you would typically not have in your life. So dating as a category is seen.
Do you think choice is always a good thing? Because a lot of
So I'll
us...
come to that. See, in some ways it is, right? Because, our social circles have become a lot smaller, especially from a family context. And so, these sort of apps give you a lot more, variety if you're in that sort of a category, right? Having said that, we often debate internally that, at least in Jeevansathi context, matrimony pehle kya hota tha, you would typically get 4 or 5 CVs over a period of 2 years, 3 years when you were in that age range. And you would choose to meet 2 or 3 people, most people, and then they will get married to one. Matrimony and dating apps did this more aur dikhao thing, right? Aur dikhao people. So they've become a lot more choosy, and that in some ways is not probably a very good thing, because that has, what we've seen is that people just keep on these apps, looking for the next better one.
No question, having more choice is good. Now, obviously, people can self-regulate, whatever. The other thing is control, right? Like having a say and having some agency into what's going to happen. It's like the biggest decision of your life. The highest beta decision that you can make in your life, both men and women, but particularly for women, is who you marry. The person you marry is going to affect your finances, your career, your kids, your value, your life for the rest of your life. All your vacations, everything. And you screw that decision up, it is the most pain that you can have in your life. Like nothing more painful than a bad relationship, bad marriage especially. Relationships you can still get out of, but marriages, even if you get separated, they will follow you forever. It is the one decision you have to get right. And I think the one thing that's happened in the last decade is most urban women have understood it. And women have internalized it before men internalized it, that I have to make this decision, like this is a high stakes decision. I have to have a say. Yeah. This person influences a lot of my life. For a lot of women, including middle class and lower middle class women, the quality of life, even, and again, everybody has a context and what they're looking for, and so it might be a relative thing, but for somebody just having the freedom to wear what they want to wear, or the freedom to work, or whatever, like just personal life is influenced. So women came into it saying, look, I want more agency. Parents, as they got younger, they were like, okay, we will ask for your opinion. Even on a matchmaking, it went from parents only to like joined, and a lot of like this sort of collaborative decision making because of that, right? It's a high stakes decision. Women, and so now I want choice. I want control. I want control over who I want. And I want to discover myself and I want to discover the person. So a lot of dating app is also just figuring out who I actually want, who am I actually compatible with. People, especially when you're young, you start with these checklists. And when you're like 17-year-olds, everybody likes whoever is the flavor of the season. People used to have a crush on the same guy or the same celebrity or whatever, because you haven't developed a taste of your own and you don't have the confidence to go against the grain and the crowd. But as you get older, you discover who you really are, and therefore who you should be with.
But does that make the decision tougher?
It is, but it's a high-stakes decision. It should be tough. I think the thing is that the better you know yourself, the easier it gets. How people complicate it, and we were just talking that, people often start out process by saying, sab chahiye. Ye bhi chahiye, bhi chahiye. And, the people who are more aware of what they're looking for, who they're looking for, do a better job of parsing it, right? And so you have all the choice in the agency. You can spend all day on Amazon buying a cup. Right? There are 1 million of them. Or you can say, I'm looking for this XYZ, and then so I'm saying that's the thing. You could browse forever, but most people don't, because at some point you realize, what am I looking for?
Okay, I have a question. Why is it that loneliness now has become such a big deal, despite having so many options, compared to, say, 15 years ago when there were no options, but there was no loneliness also?
Maybe slightly, it depends, right? You would see over a period of time, as things change, humans evolve, you will see that, new products will be created to solve some of the problems which didn't exist earlier, right? So I think this is a problem which might have been created by technology, but can also be solved by technology, right? Today, the reality is that a lot of people, I I'm surrounded with are finding partners for life on matchmaking apps, right? So technology has solved that problem to a certain extent. And a friendship is similar. Something, a social connection is similar, right? And I know a lot of these founders who are trying to build apps in this space around things like common interests, common sort of travel plans. And my sense is that some of these things could help bridge the gap.
We were discussing about the whole industry, right? I mean, there are like, what, 100 million users, we were talking about that, together in matchmaking, I mean, in dating as well as in marriage. What do you see, Taru, as a growth? I mean, she was saying she was on Tinder, you're ex-Tinder. What do you see as the growth for the industry?
So there is lots of factors. There's number of people, but also the length of time before they get married and settle down. So there is inflow of the number of people just 18, turning, entering the category from that end. Also a little bit more of people sort of figuring out they're in bad relationships, slightly older, but now, people have a lot more confidence socially to say, you know what, I'm not going to stay stuck here. So there's a little bit of that. But mostly just the length, right? So you might date someone at 21 because they're right for you when you're 21 and you outgrow them when you're 24. Right. And so you're back in the market, right? And you wanted somebody else, you're at a different life stage. And 26 and 28 and you're not getting married at 25 anymore. So I think that's, so like, just to look at it as the same individual, you are not the same person at 21 as you are at 28, even if you have the same identity. So all of that is creating growth in that sense, right? Like, so, and women have realized that this is a high stakes decision. And to some extent, men are also now, in the last couple of years, I see them coming around to that. Like, this is an important decision. I'm not going to marry just anybody. It makes a lot of difference to my life. I'm not going to be, and I need to know myself. And by the way, I'm not going to get married for 10 years. I'm not going to be like single, right? So like when I remember doing this with my team once, and I think in 2017 or 18, it was a day when I was like, it looks like the average 28-year-old, which was like, the mid-millennial user, has the same relationship experience as the average 22-year-old because they just started dating much earlier. So the number of average relationships a 22-year-old had navigated or 21-year-old had navigated was actually the same at that time as a 28-year-old because they just started dating much younger. So like schools and colleges and like all of that culture just changed rapidly at some point in the late 2005 to 10 wala time. And obviously that percolates, so that cohort of people. And again, Gen Z, right? So 17-year-old is actually much more comfortable already navigating situationships than a 32-year-old.
You should have actually had someone from that generation. Because now I think about it, I was like, if we had these apps when we were in college, God knows what the experience would have been.
Yeah, but I'm saying not even just the app, it's how just people are, right? Like ultimately the platforms are going to not create behavior, they're going to reflect behavior. Right. And they're going to empower people to do what they want to do. Correct. They don't want to date, they're not going to date. If they
I feel they create behavior also though. Because for me, it's like the way an online shopping app is creating a habit, so is this, right? Like maybe it's numbing my dopamine receptors, God knows what. But ye ho raha hai.
But if you are a shopaholic offline, that behavior will, reflect. Probably amplify because the easiness, there is low barrier, right?
Reducing friction,
yes,
so
but
increasing that.
you will not become a shopaholic because of e-commerce.
Of course you can.
No, you are a shopaholic and Amazon is enabling that behavior.
No, but it's creating a new habit in you, no? It's
Yeah,
creating something new.
Absolutely.
Like what she said, right? Like a lot of us met our spouses way before these apps started. So there was no choice. So you just had to sort of pick the person either who was in your college or in your coaching class or whatever and move on with it.
But now, that they were a good person.
And pray that they're a good person. But now this decision making is so tough because of the number of options that there are.
Yeah. And there are people like me who genuinely, are camera facing, public, whatever, but cannot make eye contact. For me, texting is very important. For me, someone talking to me first is very important and all of that. And a lot of times, tech has enabled that. Like people like me were on a back foot. Like throughout college, I never spoke to anybody. I never even if I was like drinking water and had a lot of water and all of that, it still didn't matter. I could never do it. I had no game. But this has created now a thing where I'm like, acha, chalo theek hai. you know.
Ability for introverts to have conversation
Yeah.
has increased. Ability for you to talk to someone. अरे हम वैसे भी we are Indians. We don't talk to strangers as a culture. We don't even say hi. कोई road पे चलते if somebody smiles, we'll be like, what is wrong with this person?
And as women, we will never
Absolutely
do
not.
Balki
You will
will-
think creep.
guards
right?
will be up.
Yeah, and so like, how do you talk to a person you don't, somebody you don't know? So like, the internet just like made that possible, which is why it sort of created this whole thing. Because before that, you're like, people are sitting at their home waiting for somebody to walk into their life, and you have nothing you can do about it. Because if you do something about it, you are creepy or easy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because there's such a high cost of doing it. So I think that the platform made it easy with like control privacy मेरे phone पे
And
है.
the common friend feature.
Yeah.
For me, that was golden because the one serious relationship I had, I saw my best friend was a common friend. I'm like, ye kaun hai? So I asked her. And that was like the perfect screening for me, right? Because otherwise, you could be anybody.
So since we're talking about the podcast, right, the guys at Next Level have made some profiles for you. These are not profiles on Shadi.com or Jeevansathi or Tinder, but these are profiles on the Next Level app. So I'm going to read them out. Taru, first for you. Taru was instrumental in launching and scaling the operations for Tinder in India, the first new market outside of the US, eventually made it to the fastest growing region for Tinder globally. Taru graduated from IIT Delhi, completed her MBA at Harvard, joined Tinder in India in 2016 as general manager and was later promoted to general manager of South Asia and Turkey. Taru is a consumer tech enthusiast, mother of a toddler and an angel investor. Okay, 2 toddlers now. This needs to be updated. And an angel investor. Okay, Rohan next. Head of Jeevansathi, part of InfoEdge, has been the driving force behind Jeevansathi, noted for his strategic thinking, ability to guide Jeevansathi through a quickly changing matchmaking landscape. Rohan has an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, prestigious IIM Ahmedabad, and was an engineer before moving to the business side. Rohan's like, is that me?
बड़े टाइम
Yeah,
से
very
resume
fancy.
नहीं
Very
बनाया।
fancy.
बड़े टाइम से resume नहीं बनाया।
Very fancy. Imposter syndrome. Okay. Snehil, co-founder CEO of TrulyMadly, previously co-founded Anshadi, has a passion for technology, deep grasp of consumer behavior, played a vital role in transforming TrulyMadly into one of the country's leading matchmaking platforms, also an investor and mentor to over a dozen Indian startups.
ये तो मैंने कहीं पब्लिक लिखा ही नहीं है।
कहाँ से मिला ये लोगों को?
हाँ, because I have never अभी तक मैंने डाला नहीं है LinkedIn पे एंजल इन्वेस्टर।
Okay, Mallika.
नहीं
इनकी तो डेटिंग प्रोफाइल बनवाओ ना।
मेरे में ना कुछ भी लिख दिया जाता है.
So let's see.
Yeah.
Vibrant comedian.
Vibrant comedian.
Yellow color.
Indeed. Yeah.
वाइब्रेंट कपड़े तो है।
I'm sure you've heard a lot of that bubbly.
Very bubbly, yeah.
Chirpy. Okay. Vibrant comedian, actress, social media personality, known for infectious energy and wit. It's true, by the way. Over 1.4 million ardent followers on the internet and has starred in successful shows on OTT platforms, The Trip, Midnight Misadventures with Mallika, and has appeared in films like Namaste England, Hindi Medium, Zero, I didn't know that, and others. Theatre major from Franklin and Marshall College in the US, but it's often said that studying was never her cup of tea.
Yeah, it wasn't. Until I majored in what I actually liked. So like I was that kid who was always on stage for something or the other, but marks नहीं आते थे. English में आते थे, हिंदी में आते थे.
मैं तो क्लासरूम में बैठ रहा था फिर भी मेरे मार्क्स नहीं आते थे।
I could never crack exams. Like I could never ever crack exams. I was not that person.
So how did you reach, how did you decide that you want to become a comedian? Or?
I didn't decide, I was actually struggling in school because our schools are traditional, right? That way you have to get marks or whatever. किसी तरह ECA से मुझे मिल गया Delhi University में admission and then when I was there I realized यहाँ तो फिर वही system है and I will not thrive in this because I'm not able to learn this way. And I was privileged enough that my parents were very willing to send me abroad. So I gave my SATs and then I went abroad and that's when I realized that this liberal arts model is harder. Like वहाँ passing marks are 66 or 63, whatever, that's a D-. I was like, but at least this will make my life, groom me in a different way, in a different discipline. So there I chose and wahan my advisor told me, she's like, I know you're from India and most people from India are either studying biz or econ or science, but take my advice, you should major in something that you're good at because that's what will take you forward and open other things. I said, Professor, I like acting. I like, I like all of this. She's like, that's what you should major in. And that's how I ended up majoring in theatre, which was unheard of. I was like the only Indian student. And there was one other girl who was a double major between theatre and business because her parents were like, to make Yeah, I was lucky my dad was the OG freelancer. So he was like, jo karna hai karo, Like just don't be an alike in life. And then I came here and I was a copywriter. And मैं theatre कर रही थी, side में auditions कर रही थी, and I just ended up writing for some video and performing it myself. And I didn't know that that was going to be the future for a lot of people, writing and performing in short form content. For themselves. And it just so happened, you know, like, and now when I look back, I'm like, हाँ, जो भी मैंने पढ़ा किया school में, all of that contributed, but there was no straight line to this career. Now there's a blueprint for others.
Dots can only be joined looking back.
Correct.
But the pro tip for me as a parent picking up from your dad is I should tell my kid, jo karna hai karo. Then he'll end up doing whatever he wants and reach his path.
Really, like my sister and I were like, our parents gave us so much freedom, we were cheap with them. We're like, नहीं हमें आपके ही पास रहना है, you know. Whereas जितना पकड़ के रखोगे उतना वो चीज़ दूर जाएगी आपसे. So my sister is a parent to a toddler and now a 2-month-old, and that's what she keeps trying to remind herself कि, you know, मैं इसको जितना कम रोकूं, जितना कम. But they're boys, so she's also very cognizant कि मैं इसको थोड़ा leash लेके बड़ा करूं, because he should not think that he owns the world. He should not think that he can do anything without apologizing, or, you know, treat girls a certain way or whatever.
Correct.
So I think every parent does their best. I am not a parent to a stuffed
Yet.
toy also. I don't think I could be. I'm very like immature. मतलब मैं क्या ही parent
It's okay, all of us are.
No, I'm the pits, yaar. I'm like eating candy and all, and I'm not supposed to.
We ate a lot of candy before you came. But you know, you've been through so much, and of course, all of us have had life setbacks. But you've kind of been through the deepest, darkest times in the last couple of years. What has given you the strength to sort of pick up yourself from that and move on?
I think the foundation was set very right. So, you know, all of us, none of us here can escape grief, right? It's like the one thing that's common to everybody. At some point, either you
Happiness has no meaning without.
Exactly. Like, it's like love tax, yaar. आपको प्यार मिला है ना तो उसका टैक्स आपको भरना पड़ेगा. And then you just choose that going forward, am I going to just mourn or am I going to be equally grateful? And some days you will mourn harder than you will be grateful. But ultimately, na, like my sister's a therapist and she was telling me that her supervisor was telling her that I've actually noticed that kids who are closer to their parents, like the tighter they are to their parents, the better they deal with the grief of losing them. And you'd imagine that it would actually be harder or whatever. Of course it's harder because it's love. Love hurts in any capacity. But I think they leave you on, like, I can speak for like our parents. They left us on a very solid grip on life. So while every single day I struggle with, हाय इसी दुनिया में आपने दुनिया दिखाई और खुद ही चले गए यहाँ से. But then we've also learned ki what this means
and how to navigate.
How to navigate it, and yeah, like it's an everyday thing. I think the best thing they did was they educated us and they made sure that, you know, we can survive in this world with or without them. And because grief to har kisi ko hoga na.
And you said an important point. Happiness doesn't exist without grief, right?
Yeah.
You have anything to share?
So my parents were separated from as long as I can remember, right? So born and raised by in, you know, single mother, taking care of us. Not in a very good financial space also growing up in my life.
Where were you raised?
Delhi only. So that was the privilege कि at least सही जगह पे बैठे हैं, right? But some not so good part of Delhi in a very small home. And then I think 2010, I remember this because I documented it also, कि I took a conscious decision कि यार I'll be happy, right? Because life is going to be very sinusoidal, right? And I will anyway not feel any happiness if I have not felt the sadness. Because अगर आप हर वक्त ही खुश हो तो फिर आप कभी भी खुश नहीं हो रहे हो ना. Because happiness is a spike in your excitement or your hormones, right? Ultimately we are a slave to our
Mind.
Chemical reactions in our mind, right? So when you look at it from that perspective कि यार पता ही है कि लाइफ में ऊपर नीचे तो होना ही होगा, तो लेट्स एम्ब्रेस इट एंड एवरी you know downturn that you are going through will pave the way for the next happiness that you will experience.
Correct.
Right? And अभी थोड़े दिन पहले मैं एक वीडियो देख रहा था इंस्टाग्राम पे. There was actually a ball जो कि एक बॉल सिर्फ एक inclined plane पे ऐसे नीचे आ रही है एंड दूसरी ऐसे sinusoidal inclined plane है, तो that ball actually reaches down faster. राइट बिकॉज वो चाहे नीचे जब नीचे जाके उसका जो मोमेंटम इंक्रीज हो रहा है
picks up a lot when it goes
या वो उस मोमेंटम की वजह से वो लाइक फिजिक्स तो एंड तब मैंने नहीं सोचा था ये तो मैंने थोड़े दिन पहले वीडियो देखी बट दैट आई अंडरस्टूड कि यार वो खुशी की मीनिंग भी तभी है अगर आपने ग्रीफ एक्सपीरियंस किया है सैडनेस एक्सपीरियंस किया है नहीं तो हाउ एल्स विल यू इवन फील हैप्पीनेस इफ यू आर ऑलवेज हैप्पी
And in any case, everything is transient, right? That's the
Yeah.
one thing that grief doesn't last, and neither does happiness. So yeah.
And the life you've lived now is always more important than how that life ended, right?
Yeah.
Like you can, अगर किसी के माँ बाप या किसी का बच्चा या किसी के like there are all kinds of really horrible things that happen in the world, right? But if you lose them at 90, 100, 200, it's never enough. It is never enough. So at some point you just have to be like, did they have a good life? Was it as painless as it could be? Can I separate my pain from the life that they lived? Yes. Then, like, I think I'm ridiculously privileged in that aspect.
Correct.
You know? So, and like my sister said that day, she's like, because she's a therapist again, like, so she sees people from a very different lens. Like, in my profession, I see only the exterior. She gets to see the deep, dark interiors of people. She's like, I can assure you one thing. She's like, even in their absence, our parents are more present for us than a lot of people's parents are, like, in physical, like, presence. And then you just hear of, like, everything that happens around you. And also you realize कि मतलब आपको इतनी freedom, इतना प्यार इसलिए थोड़ी दिया था कि आप मतलब give up ही कर दो life पे उनके बगैर.
Correct.
Right, you know? So you...
No, but a lot of us, as you were saying, right? I mean, a lot of us seek happiness and everything, but that that process itself is something that, I mean, you can find happiness in what you're doing today despite the kind of suffering or trauma or whatever that you're going
and
through.
You can not be happy also. I feel that there's this relentless pursuit of quick joy, quick dopamine, quick happiness, right? Where meaning kind of takes a backseat. A lot of times you may not feel happy doing a lot of things, but they may give you a lot of meaning in your life and they may give you a harder grip on life, you know? Just for example, any activity that requires discipline may not actually be giving you happiness, right? But you're building for something greater and larger. So I think as you grow older, you realize कि ठीक है यार, हर चीज़ से खुशी मिलना ज़रूरी नहीं है. या अगर आज खुशी नहीं हो रही, तो मैं नहीं फेक करूँगी. चलो मेरा तो काम है, मेरे पास ऑप्शन नहीं. But
as you grow older, I think one more thing you realize कि जब आप छोटे थे ना तो लगता था कि यार अब जैसे बचपन में लगता था यार 30+ लोग तो सॉर्टेड ही होते हैं अपनी जिंदगी में राइट कि वो 30 के हुए तो पता चला यार ऐसा तो कुछ है ही नहीं अपने आसपास के भी ऐसा भी नहीं कि सिर्फ अपने सॉर्टेड नहीं है आसपास के भी सब जो 30-32 के लोग हैं
बच्चों को देखते लगते इतने सॉर्टेड है बच्चे लोग
यार वही एक्चुअल में सॉर्टेड ना वही है राइट एंड वो मुझे लगता है कि बच्चों को बताना भी चाहिए इट इज ऑल डाउनहिल फ्रॉम हियर अभी मुझे क्योंकि कोई तुम्हारे ऊपर ना एक सेफ्टी नेट में आप जी रहे हो आप खुश आपकी इमोशन बहुत बाहर के एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड से नहीं इम्पैक्ट होती सिर्फ आपके लिए अपने पेरेंट्स फैमिली हैं एंड यू नो आप स्कूल में आपके दोस्त हैं वो एक छोटा सा वो है रियल वर्ल्ड से आप बबल में ही हो ना तो जैसे ही आप बबल से उठ के जब आप रियल वर्ल्ड में आते हो राइट तो
then it's all downhill from there.
हाँ नहीं मतलब चलो वो थोड़ा एग्जैजरेशन था कि इट्स नॉट डाउनहिल बट हाँ मतलब बट वो सेफ्टी नेट नहीं रहता उसमें.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
But a lot of the business of love is also a lot about finding happiness, right? At the end of the day.
It's building your life. Yeah.
Yes.
It's constructing your life. It's constructing a life that
exactly.
you want. And you know the thing that the 30s ka scam, the real scam is this. Between 35 and 45, at least in that age group, is when shit gets real. Every decision, everything that happens in your life is high stakes. Your parents. No, everybody like that age. This is the age. This is the age where everything and whatever in your life is not going well is a big source of problem, and it's a real problem that you cannot ignore. In your 20s, you can ignore it, you can postpone it, you get a chance to reboot it. In that age group, if you want children, can't have them, that's a problem. If you have children, can't raise them, well, that's a problem. If if something is wrong health-wise, that's a problem. If you have parents, that's a problem. Don't have parents, that's a problem. You're getting older, you have to deal with everything. You have to make if you're financially secure, any issues around these are all real issues, right? And so life is just real. You're an adult.
Life gets real.
There is nowhere to hide, and whatever is broken is broken. So like, that's who you are. And so
at that point, if you have a companion to help you navigate all those
so you have
issues.
to construct your life. So when you're in your 20s, we don't give this much thought. But like the reality is, if I have a partner, because your life partner is a big part. If you have someone, and if you're in sync, that's a big part of your problem sorted, or at least your tools to solve together, tools to deal with the grief, tools to deal with office shit or home shit, whatever is wrong with your life. Your partner is your support and your tool. And if that part is not sorted, if you're in a bad relationship, or if you're feeling really lonely, or your marriage is not working, oh my God, everything else is going to blow over on you, because something will happen. It's life. One day everything is great. The other day, some kid is in your kid's in a hospital. Life just is on pause. So that partner is important. So that intentionality about creating your life. So like, a lot of people in their late 20s come and ask you for career advice. I was like, let's think of your career in conjunction with your life. Where do you want to live? What is your aspiration? How much money do you need to make you happy? Do you need your friends around? Do you need a family around? You have to construct it, because in 20s we go this blind about this idea of success. I have to be famous. But if I'm famous and lonely and I have no friends and nobody is strong to, it's going to come and bite me, right? Or whatever it is, right? So I think there has to be intentionality in creating your life. Your career is a big part of it. My life, my friends. And so people, and you see this also, people in 40 sometimes, when they have the privilege to make choices, you're like, this guy used to be all about making money, he stepped down, he taken his life, and like, I'm going to balance. Because you know what? I need it. For whatever reason, for health, for family. This happens because you realize it's real. So I think that's what I say. Every woman, especially I meet, but also to men, who you marry is the highest stakes decision you take. Because if you marry, right, that person sitting next to you, even if you're fighting with them sometimes, that's your partner. And if they are not partnering with you in dealing with whatever, if you cannot come and talk about whatever crisis you're having at work with your partner, it's a big problem in your life. It's going to be a gap. And when you don't have, you're not compatible, you cannot share that. That is when people, relationships break, people cheat, people get depressed. Like, a lot of resource is there, because unfortunately human beings, we cannot be everything. We cannot do everything. So, and not everything is in your control. Bad stuff will happen. Some part will go wrong. So I think equipping yourself, and the younger we get, more self-aware about who we are and what we really want is important. That's why that phase of exploration and wandering and the freedom to wander and try out when you're younger is important, because stakes are lower. What is going to happen if you date a wrong person, like, except for the absolute one?
So Taru has built a very strong case for marriage, by the way.
I know. Whenever somebody...
It's like Seema auntie.
And it is very right.
Can I invest in
It is very right.
but I'm
Marriage acts for the win.
But I think it doesn't have to be a marriage
Marriage,
partner.
yeah,
It has to be a partner.
right?
I never said
मैं marriage का बोलता हूँ. नहीं, I'll tell you for marriage, right? And whenever somebody says me ना कि यार मैं सोच रहा हूँ मेरे को शादी नहीं करनी, a girl or a guy, so I share with them one thing which once a very wise person told me: you don't marry for right now, you marry for your old age. राइट कि आप तो सिर्फ अभी अगले 5-10 साल देख रहे हो ना.
Being alone
when you are
is better than being with the wrong person.
Exactly. Right person तो is a...
So that's what I'm saying. So that intentionality is what I'm saying. So it's much, you can create your life where you can equip yourself, build a community. Your village can be your friends and your
नहीं, यार Ratan Tata has publicly said multiple times, I am in a very lonely phase of my life. उसको resources की क्या कमी है? उसको गांव क्या, वो शहर उसका दोस्त बनने को तैयार हो जाएगा.
But I'm saying that's what I mean by constructing a life.
Married लोगों में भी तो हो सकता है.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on, like
That's true.
Like the worst, like you will notice a lot of spouses follow each other in quick succession when they pass away, because that loneliness of losing somebody or living without somebody you love and you're used to. So, I mean, from what Taru said, everything resonated except I wasn't picturing a romantic partner
I never
beside
meant
me.
it.
Yeah.
A companion.
I said create a life. What works for you? And construct it. Construct a partner if that's your picture.
And you can't find everything in one person. Like my best friend Shweta, she's married, okay? She's been married for a few years and she dated her husband long before. But there are so many things that just she and I do together and she doesn't do with him. Like there's a lot of travel that we do. And there's a lot of things that we do together. There's a lot of things that he doesn't like to do or she does just with him. And I realized that thank God for that. Or like the week my mom passed away, okay? My sister had a 2-month-old and she had to go back to feed him or whatever. तो वो 3 दिन आई और उसको जाना पड़ा. तो कोई भी नहीं था दिल्ली में. बट मैं 1 मिनट के लिए अकेली नहीं थी. बिकॉज हर सेकेंड कोई दोस्त आ रहा था, कोई दोस्त का दोस्त आ रहा था, कोई कुछ और आ रहा था. Like I just went through that period, like, and I didn't have a partner. Now she had. Like, you know, like my Jiju was like a great support to all of us and her. But like, I didn't have a romantic partner, but for me, that entire phase, I was not devoid of love.
But
I
the
was
takeaway I would say is
a
that
genuine
you've
relationship.
constructed a life in which that those friends are important. So when you decide to say, look, I'm going to fly off to Honolulu or whatever, then I don't have friends. Whatever, you're making those choices. Or you also say, look, I have to invest in these friendships because when I'm 55 also, I want these people to be with me. So I have to make intentional choices to keep nurturing these friends and
like
relationships
your
that
patni
show up
or
with
your
me.
patni cannot be your everything.
But somebody has to show up to me. So that's what I mean by constructing your life. Saying,
You
look,
have to build a village
if I
around
need
you.
these 5 friends, I have to invest time and energy into these 5 friends. I want children, I have to invest certain time and energy into this. I want a financial future, I want to invest time and energy. You balance that out, right? And if you go after that, that's what I mean. Like, if you define success only by, oh my God, I became a unicorn founder and I spent all of the time and energy of my 30s and 40s doing that, suddenly I invested nothing in my friends.
Yeah.
And so then you cannot fault them for not showing up when shit happens.
But things are very different. Now, what we're talking about, that finding a companion ex of your spouse, is very different from what it was 10, 15 years ago, when there was so much social conditioning that made us believe that we will be happy only if we get married and have kids. That's where, Rohan and jump in on this. I mean, if the whole mindset is only changing that you don't need a romantic partner at all to move ahead in life, then what happens to business models like yours?
See, I said earlier also, platforms will reflect the societies they are in, right? Jeevansathi for you could mean somebody who's married, a partner for life. Jeevansathi would also be somebody who's a partner but not married. Marriage is a social construct, right? Now, of course, from a practical standpoint, marriage in this country, we are very far away from the stage where it's an unviable business, to be honest. But and different models will come. I think different platforms will emerge. Maybe we will build some platforms, right? So
Companionship to hamesha chahiye hoti hai.
Correct. So platforms will evolve, new platforms will come, but I think the core remains very similar, right? I can now compare how we run IEL and how we run Jeevansathi. What we can see is that the core tenets of business, the core tenets of the product, are not very different. Right? They're very similar
Connecting two people.
Connecting
Just
two people
different
at a
form
very basic
factor.
level is very, very similar, right? And so much of what we've learned in Jeevansathi is something which we can easily replicate in these platforms. And I think that will keep happening, right? And newer platforms will come, and societies like the US has got so many more evolved products, where niches. In fact, Match Group has a bunch of different products to cater to different kinds of categories of people. I'm sure that all that will happen in India. So, as I said, there's huge opportunity, a huge population, young population looking to find partners. So I think there is going to be a lot of opportunity for everybody, for us who've been in this industry, and also for people who are looking at it as something they want to do something in.
Okay, so I want to understand some consumer trends in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, because TrulyMadly is big there. You were telling me, right?
Yeah.
Not just in the regional speaking cities, but
Even
also
the
English
speaking audience, 45% of our revenue and 55% of our users are now from tier 2 and tier 3.
Okay.
And getting married. In fact, we have stories where girl is from Banaras, guy is from Lucknow, girl is from Indore, guy is from Bhopal, girl is from Guwahati, guy is from Kolkata. So these are all places 200, 300 kilometers apart, but similar culture, right? And the guy hops onto a train for 200, 300 kilometers to meet the girl, and then ये long distance चल रहा है,
the
डेढ़
people
दो.
don't even travel half an hour to
Exactly, right?
meet other people.
Why would I come north? So, and in some ways you look at them, they are much pure love stories, like nostalgic 90s love stories, how, we used to see. And उनसे बात करके भी यार मतलब, and I talk to them a lot. They are our biggest brand ambassadors also. So I asked one of the girl कि यार, what made you come on the app, and how did you then convince your parents, and did you tell everybody around you or not, right? So because most of the people, they don't even tell कि यार dating app पे मिले हैं. तो सबसे बड़ा झूठ जो मैंने आइडेंटिफाई किया है, दैट इज यार, अगर वो बोला ना फ्रेंड्स ऑफ फ्रेंड्स, वो झूठ है. ये सब ऑनलाइन वाले हैं. कोई फ्रेंड्स ऑफ फ्रेंड्स से नहीं मिल रहा है आजकल.
वो तो सालों से चल रहा है.
हाँ, वो सब ये ऑनलाइन वाले हैं. तो शी सेड कि यार, मेरा ये मानना है कि दिस इज जस्ट अ मीडियम. आप चाहे कॉलेज में किसी से मिल रहे हो, चाहे आप क्लब में किसी से मिल रहे हो, चाहे आप यहाँ पे मिल रहे हो, these are all just mediums, and when you look at it, it is kind of just यार आप बिना इसके आप साल में 3-4 भी अच्छे लोग पोटेंशियल लोगों से मिल नहीं रहे हो ना, राइट? वी हैव सच बिजी लाइव्स, वी हैव लिमिटेड टाइम एंड नेटवर्क आउटसाइड ऑफ वर्क. इंडिया में आप बाहर में जाके कुछ कर नहीं सकते, थप्पड़ ही खा के आओगे, राइट? और आता भी नहीं है आपको, राइट? तो आप शायद खड़े ही रह जाओगे, सोचते रह जाओगे क्या बोलूँ कैसे बोलूँ. एंड if I want to find a life partner today who is compatible also, and I want to be sure कि यार they are also having the same intent, कि ऐसा नहीं है कि I am looking for a serious relationship and you are looking for a casual, तो वहाँ पे भी mismatch आ जाएगा. तो same intent के लोगों को same time and space में ला रहे हैं ना, तो हम we are just creating a medium for people to connect with new people which they would not have otherwise met. And then it's up to them कि यार क्या हो रहा है, उसमें हमारा कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. And dating then allows you to learn what you also want, right? Marriage is the one time probably the thing you will do. Dating में you have flexibility, there is room for failure, right? At least you will learn कि यार this is what I do. I thought कि मेरे को ये चाहिए, but this is more something else is much more important to me versus just this, right?
Actually, that's an important point you made, Rohan. I want you to jump in on this. Have consumer preferences changed for matrimonial sites after dating sites became a big thing?
See, there's a social trend that has sort of been playing out for quite some time. Matrimony was, back in say 10, 11, matrimony was largely run by parents, right? Of course, there were pockets of the country where the children had a lot of say in who they would get married to, but the parents were the ones who would decide when and what and who, and families were very important. So a lot of times families will meet and then they will tell their children, "Aap mil lo." And then, if something happens, then they'll say, okay, fine, let's go ahead. That trend has changed quite secularly across the country. And I think that is also, it might have been aided by dating apps, but what we've seen is that prospects have taken more charge. I think it's also linked with the fact that females have sort of, said, as Taru was mentioning, that, this is an important life decision and I want to sort of, at least take a decision of who I'm going to get married to. So what happened is that, when I joined Jeevansathi back in the day, we used to run some very large number of retail centers. We were like cyber cafes for finding partners, right? So parents will come and sit, because they didn't have access to laptop, there were no mobiles. So they would come, sit and search for, profiles they like, take printouts, take them home to their children, show them this is what they found, and then, that's how things used to work. Fast forward now, at least on Jeevansathi, we see it's a more collaborative approach. There are parents, there are prospects themselves. In fact, people, users are themselves finding partners on their own. The difference with dating, I think, is that in large number of cases, the parents are somewhere in the background, right? They're sort of maybe helping them shortlist, or some sense they're sort of bringing to the process. And that sanctity also lends some credence to the whole process, right?
Correct.
So one thing that Matrimony solves for is intent, because you're there pretty much for a very clear reason, right? On dating, there is that problem which I think needs a solution for, right? And so,
Which is what? What is the problem?
Basically, what we see, and I was talking about IEL earlier. What we see is that there's a lot of mismatch of intent, right? What am I coming for versus what the other person is coming for, and it could be the depth of relationship somebody is looking for, the duration. In tier 2, tier 3, this is very common that people come just to chat, right? And that is something which may not work for a lot of people who are really looking for a relationship, meet somebody and have a sort of...
Mallika, do you feel that? I mean, there is mismatch of intent whenever you go on these apps?
Yeah, and that's just our generation, right? That's all of us spoiled for choice.
The weirdest part is not just that. One is your intent, my intent. Mine is my own intent. Like after meeting you, my intent 3 months down the line, my intent, like you people don't always know what they want. Like, so that's the thing, and it changes. I might get into a relationship, we're just meeting. I might suddenly be into you. You have not. That's still going to result in a heartbreak, right? Or you might lie to me. Or you might change your mind. People are allowed to change their mind. So like lots of things happen, right? So people are not very good at knowing what they want. And it's a little bit of let's see what goes on also there. Except when there's very explicit pressure. And then when there is explicit pressure, people go in with some timeline or, whatever. Yeah. That happens a lot on Matrimony, but also happens on pretty much every app. Happens on Tinder, happens on Hinge, it happens on every serious dating app. That I have to settle down in XYZ, I'm working backwards, right? So I only have I cannot afford more than X serious relationship before that. Like I put some artificial deadline and I
You
start.
have to mention that. Now, what are you looking for? Like my Raya is set to now. Earlier, it was not set to this. But as I spoke to more people and met a few people, some creeps as well, I was like, what I realized was that if you mention you're looking for a relationship and you are again, I'm specifically talking about myself, you're an independent public figure, and some guy you're talking to, he gets an ego massage because you have agreed to speak to him.
Correct.
He will start thinking that, acha, she's down to do anything, right? So now I have been forced to put here for friends because I'm like, if that's what it takes for you to respect me and see me as a person, then theek hai. So I'm here for friends. And anyway, I don't think I want to date anyone who's not my friend. I want to marry anyone who's not my friend. So like for me, I think friendship is the most sacred in this case.
Do you think, that's what I was asking these guys earlier, do you think there's a big market for friendship apps only? Because
I really wish there was, because like I live between 3 cities. I live between Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore. And I don't think it's possible to make too many friends in the industry that I, inhabit because there's a lot of competition. You're not always wishing each other well and all of that. And then this is the city I grew up in. So my school friends ke alawa ab kaun hi banega mera dost. And then I go to Bangalore where my sister lives, where I have no friends besides my 2 nephews and my sister and her husband. But I'm like, I wish there were apps where you could meet people and do things based on common interest or based on just anything. I don't know how that would work. But then again, for women, I don't know how that would play out. Kaun aa jayega, kis mood mein aa jayega, irritate karne.
But that's an important point. Tanu's
Yeah,
making
yeah.
notes, that these are the consumer preferences and how they're changing.
But people won't pay for, na. So if people are not paying for that, there cannot be any mechanism where some kind of verification is happening. Or
But why not? People
Also,
there's
Pay
a
doesn't
subscription.
ensure anything.
But there's a
Pay doesn't
subscription
ensure
model in
yeah, but
TrulyMadly
Indians,
as well, right?
yes, but it really kicked up when we started of positioning ki start your love story, right? Because when there is an intent and there is a behavior कि यार matrimony पे 5,000 रुपए parents दे ही रहे हैं, तो 2,000 रुपए अपन यहाँ पे दे देते हैं,
Okay.
right? So that helped because then in a way we are going after a share of wallet versus creating a new wallet. Because
So what
we have
percentage
seen
of your user base pays now? About 5-6%?
4-ish, yeah.
Okay. But in a price sensitive market like India, you think you can grow that number?
Yeah, with time it will increase because our ARPU has increased from 250 rupees in 2018 to now 1,500, 1,600 rupees.
Okay.
Right? And if we would have kept this at 200, 300 rupees, the paying percentage would have increased, right? Because that number is inversely proportional to the ARPU. Higher the ARPU, lower the percentage. But we understood that it is better to take more money from less people, provide them value, right? And that's it.
So you're saying people will pay for matrimony, for dating, but they may not pay for friendship apps?
No. Unless it is that dream girl situation.
Intensity of need situation.
Exactly.
So it's like, what am I paying
That 6
for?
rupees per minute पे पूजा से बात करो मैं आपकी दोस्त
That's
बनूंगा.
not friendship.
That's not-
No,
That's not friendship.
but a lot of
That's the
friendship
opposite
apps
of
which are
friendship.
right now there,
Absolute
they are
opposite
doing
of
this.
Yeah.
Like this
I
Raya,
think-
for example, 5,000 to skip the wait and to, join Raya Plus so you can see who liked you and options and blah, blah, blah.
But then again on Raya, 5,000 for the people, there is nothing, right?
And also, that is not, trust me, a screening mechanism because it could well be a pool of rich assholes, right?
Yeah.
And you could have purchasing power, but if you're a garbage person, you just are a garbage person with 10,000 more rupees to burn, right? So, like, you'll still find creeps there, just creeps who work in venture capital firms. Like, I don't know. I literally met one. So, yeah.
Which
so
firm
that's
was
the only. इसके बाद बताऊंगी मैं आपको.
Yeah, no. I think you want to say something? Yeah.
No, I was just saying that, see, as she said, it's intensity of need, right? If people are, why people pay on matrimony apps is because, it's dead serious, right? And so they're very, very clear, it's won't get married, there's a timeline, in their head at least. So, the conversions are much higher, right? Of course, the use case is smaller, right? Because not everybody wants to get married at that point of time. Dating has a much longer sort of cycle in people's lives. But the intensity of need is probably a little lower because not any point of time you may not be as desperate, right? Friendships are similar, right? It's really about where you are in your life. What you need is how you monetize, and then your monetization could happen many ways. Right? It doesn't need to be a subscription all the time. You could also find other ways of monetizing a platform which has people coming here for friendships, for social gatherings. As I said, there are a bunch of things people are trying.
Yeah, I think
in
if you
India.
build something that helps people actually make friends, you'll figure out a way to make money.
Right.
Correct.
I think as a business, if you figure
But
out
isn't
a way
that
to
called Facebook?
when was the last time you made a new friend?
Exactly,
on
but
Facebook?
the platform was made for
you
that,
mean make
to connect with. So,
No, but I'm saying like it doesn't. Like if you wanted a friend, you wouldn't go on. It was for connecting with people you used to know.
See, it's basically
It was a
networks,
history.
right?
Correct.
Networking.
so
It
it
was
started
it
like
was not
that, but
future.
then they tried dating also.
They
They
tried-
tried connecting with new people
Right,
based on
it doesn't
same
work,
interest
na?
and
Because
everything.
it did
That's why I'm saying
actually
that
create
didn't work.
friendships. I'm
वो
saying that
माहौल ही नहीं था वहाँ रिश्ते बनाने का, you know.
it doesn't create. I'm saying if you actually help people find friends, you will figure out a way to make money.
So as a founder, right, your, I guess, job is to look 10 years out and to see what the next big trend is. From this conversation, what I'm understanding is that things are moving further away from matrimony now to dating, now to friendship as well. Is that also because social conditioning is changing? I mean, when we were young, we were 21, 22, the only thing we were told by our parents is shadi kar lo, bacche paida kar lo. But now, I mean, I have a young son. I mean, I'm going to make sure that he takes his decision. And marriage is nowhere in that. It doesn't feature anywhere. You think this unlearning of social conditioning is also leading to a lot of people just looking for friendship rather than marriage?
Because so my parents, for example, had a very traditional marriage. Like they met and got married in 15 days. I don't know how that happened. But like they never told us to do the same, for example. And I also, growing up, it's not like anybody fed this to me, but growing up, I used to just feel very detached to the idea of just some people just getting married randomly, or जैसे होता है ना कि स्कूल अब खत्म हो गया, अब कॉलेज जाते हैं तो अब शादी कर लेते हैं. It always felt very alien to me. As I grew up, I realized, अच्छा, this is why this feels alien to me. And when I became financially independent, then to that whole idea went out the window for me.
Correct.
You know, like now I purely seek companionship, but don't be a headache, you know. Be a companion, be a friend, be cool.
So
but
marriage is
sar pe
nowhere
mat
on
baith.
your list.
No, it's not, because because I've seen some very bad situations, like bad divorces, you know, where especially, and I'm generalizing because that's what I've seen, but I've seen that there's this Raja Beta syndrome, na, कि ये तो कुछ गलत कर ही नहीं सकता, इसी ने कुछ गलत किया होगा. And I've seen in my own family, like women are just expected to give a lot more in a marriage, right? Emotionally, just in every way, physically, in every possible way. And I don't think I am cut out for that. I think I was a Rani Beti, the way I was raised. So I'm like, I don't think, like my sister has a traditional marriage, you know, she and her husband, they both work, they have 2 children. And they both, like, ऐसा नहीं है कि तुम ये काम करोगे मैं वो करूँगी. They both make everything work. But I think वो temperament की बात होती है. I think I'm a bit of a, like, I don't think I can completely, you know, settle down with someone and then say that, you know, your mother is my mother and your friends are my friends and let me call your sister up. Like my mom would call my bua every day. Every day she would call, you know. And that was beautiful because my bua still calls me and remembers her, which is very unlikely, you know, it doesn't always happen. But I don't think, maybe because I'm pre-social media and post-social media as a generation, I don't know if I can do that. Like the way marriage is designed to work.
Correct.
Also, I see people around me, people my age, whoever got married, say 8 years ago, 9 years ago, a lot of them are getting divorces now. And now they're like, oh, I just want to live for myself.
Correct.
And one last thing I'm noticing is that as women are becoming very, very financially independent, like I've dated some lovely men, but I've still seen that they have a problem with the way I shine. They don't want me to shine brighter than them. And I have a problem not shining. I will shine, you know. So this is a problem. Yeah. And ये है तकलीफ, ये है कहीं पे. And I watched an interview, Indra Nui said na कि that, you know, when you come home, you leave all of that and जो भी है. Like, कैसे यार? मतलब कैसे?
So, Taru, you know, we were talking about it, right, a while back as to how perhaps this whole social conditioning of marriage, etc., needs a rethink. If that happens, more and more people like Mallika believe that, you know, hey, I don't need a man and I don't need a spouse. I'm happy on my own, financially independent.
Also, I don't want kids, so it's easy for me to say these things.
Exactly. Yeah. So, do you think that this whole business model of, say, a shadi.com, a jeevansathi.com will over the years become a bit redundant?
See, what you just heard, so much millennial angst. It comes from what we absorb and what we react to. Okay? So, like, I relate to a lot of what she said because you see, like, there's a bunch of I think when we were growing up, this is very normative sort of path of life. पढ़ाई करो, marks लाओ, college जाओ, शादी करो, बच्चे पैदा करो, like whatever. And then we realized, okay, you know, it was given as a gospel. Ye karo, you will be happy. Then you grew up and you're like, not everybody is happy.
Yeah.
You know, and you're actually not allowed to walk out. You're not allowed to complain. What is happening, right? And so slowly, like we questioned, like when I'm like we millennials. Question this idea of, and again, when I say we again, sorry, I'm going to qualify as a very privileged bunch of us. Not everybody can, but we were educated, we had enough family support. We could question saying, should marriage be a goal for the sake of it?
Yeah.
Now, that's not a privilege a lot of people have, so they will be in a business for a long time because marriage is not going anywhere. But we said, okay, it should not be a goal for the sake of it. It just should be a consequence of something. It's a great relationship, I want to be this person, I'll get married, right? I'll formalize it, whatever I call it. But it is not a goal for the sake of it. I'm not going to have children because that's what you do as a woman, that's what you're born to do. Yeah. I want them, so I would have them, and they're a great joy, but only if you want them. I have two. I'm telling you, it's the best thing I ever did, but I really wanted them.
Correct.
If you don't want them, please don't have children. They're a pain.
There's so many people who believe their parents did them wrong.
Yeah.
Like I believe my parents are the best parents. I'm like, आपको करने चाहिए थे बच्चे, but मैं अगर करूँ और मैं खुश ना हूँ.
But I'm saying you could change your mind
I
also.
could.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. And that's what I see is in relationships, people who have regrets are like, I just did it because everybody, told me.
So many people.
So there's that reaction in the society that has happened in the last, few years in the section that's allowed to. Now there's two consequences. One is the next generation. जिनके parents भी तो younger हो गए ना. The kids who are turning 18, they were born in what, 2020? 2002.
2002.
No, not 2006. 2006. Can you imagine? They were in 2006 are turning 18 today, which means their parents got married maybe in the 2000s. Maybe their parents were born in 1980s maybe,
Yeah.
right? So you have to sort of see that generation of parents and parenting and what they are seeing. The world is different. The conversation you're seeing on Bollywood and television every day is different. We're not seeing the same movies anymore.
Exactly.
We don't have the same idea of relationships. So this generation has a different thing. Now that is why that generation will rewrite the norm. They will not grow with pressure. They might move in with choice. They might say relationships are great. For all I know, they might want to get married at 22. I don't care. Get married to the right person. It's amazing, right? So I think if you go by choice, it's fine. When you're doing it, I think that's the thing that's changing. And parents are already not pushing,
Marriages will
etc.
keep happening. The reason why it is happening, it was happening
yeah.
10 years ago, has already changed
so-
why it is
yeah.
happening today,
And
and
that
it will
change
drastically
more.
change in the next
It will
decade.
change more.
जबरदस्ती निभाने का प्रेशर कम होता जाएगा is what I
जैसे
feel.
अभी भी अपन जो 2 year 2 3 की कुछ लड़कियों से बात करते हैं ना, दे टेल मी वन, एक अगर मैं यूनिफाइड वो बताऊं कि यार खुद से कोई नहीं ढूंढा तो पापा अरेंज मैरिज करा देंगे.
Correct.
Because I asked them कि यार what makes you open the app, what is the love or the fear or the what is the emotion that is driving you to
अगर
open
मैं
the
ढूंढ
app.
के लाई तो पापा शायद मान भी जाएंगे, right?
हाँ.
Which is the difference in like a 10 minutes.
बिल्कुल.
Right?
वो
And
तो exactly.
So what are you seeing? See, because a lot of us live in privileged India, right? Which is a
very small portion.
minuscule portion
इंडिया
of the
के
country.
टॉप 30 सिटीज में गेस करो कितना परसेंटेज पॉपुलेशन रहता है. हम लोग शायद सारे मिलके 30 सिटीज लिख नहीं सकते. गेस व्हाट इज द परसेंटेज ऑफ पॉपुलेशन दैट लिव्स?
5% maybe.
10%, राइट? एंड उसमें से 4% लिव्स इन स्लम्स. तो इंडिया जो है वो 6% है. रेस्ट इज भारत. राइट? तो वो
that's
मेन
what
तो
I
सारा
want to
वहाँ पे
know.
है.
So my objective with this podcast is, for that average student who's just starting his work and wants to perhaps get into this industry, wants to create something, build something, what does he need to look forward to? What is the next 5 years going to be in this dating and matchmaking business?
We all can speculate a lot of things, but only time will tell ki what will happen. But few things that will not change, right? So there is this also book called Same as Ever, right? उसमें पूरा मैसेजिंग ही यही है कि a lot of people try to think यार क्या चेंज हो जाएगा, but it is always best to build on क्या चेंज नहीं होगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू लुक एट द एग्जाम्पल ऑफ अमेजॉन, जेफ बेजोस की वो 2 चीजें थी कि पीपल विल ऑलवेज वांट चीपर प्रोडक्ट्स, चीपर प्राइस एंड फास्टर डिलीवरी, राइट? दीज आर द 2 things that will never change. So if you are building something, what you should look at is कि what are the things that will not change. People will want companionship, राइट? दे विल वॉन्ट मैरिज हो ना हो, लिव इन चाहे हो. अभी आप मुंबई में देखो, दिल्ली में देखो, बैंगलोर में देखो, देर विल बी अ लॉट ऑफ लिव इन कपल्स जो कि 10-10 साल 8-8 साल से रह रहे हैं, बट वो भी टियर 2 टियर 3 टियर 4 में नहीं है, बट वो रेप्लिकेट होएगा, राइट? रीजन बीइंग, अभी जैसे हम बात कर रहे थे कि कंटेंट क्या देख रहे हैं. अभी एक और चीज है कि सिर्फ हम जो कंटेंट देख रहे हैं वो तो देख ही रहे हैं, पूरा इंडिया सेम कंटेंट देख रहा है, राइट? वो जो एक झारखंड के किसी डिस्ट्रिक्ट में बैठा हुआ बंदा भी वही कंटेंट देख रहा है जो मुंबई में बैठ के कोई देख रहा है. तो वी आर बीइंग इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय द सेम आइडियाज
And the same set of people.
and the same set of people, right?
Exactly. So aspiration is important here, right? So they understand their reality.
But aspiration is,
They-
aspiration आता कहाँ से है? इन्हीं चीजों से ना.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is
So
that
is marriage not an aspiration anymore?
no, I disagree with that, right?
Like
Because
good marriage is an aspiration.
like tell me,
But that
विराट
you'll only
अनुष्का
know in
से
hindsight.
ज्यादा वायरल कुछ नहीं है
किससे ज्यादा?
इंटरनेट पे. विराट अनुष्का से ज्यादा.
Yeah.
Like when any of us, the biggest cynics, the worst of us, the best of us, when we see that,
Yeah.
also what we like is that it's two accomplished people coming together, but keeping the sanctity of what they're coming together for alive, right?
Right.
And we all love that. The pursuit of love will never end. We will all watch Bridgerton.
ये
We
तो
will all watch
hardwired है ना,
anything
मतलब.
Karan Johar dishes out for us. तो वो कभी खत्म नहीं होगा. You know? बस
Yeah.
just but we're also I feel very realistic that we're like ये हर किसी को मुकम्मल जहाँ नहीं मिलता तो जब तक नहीं मिल रहा let's not settle for something really dangerously bad for us.
Correct. But Snehil made an important point earlier saying that why is this industry not growing, right? For the last, I think, 3-4 years, there's hardly
terms
been
of
any...
revenue.
In terms of revenue,
Users चाहे बढ़ रहे हैं.
Haan, so why is that?
Yeah, so multiple. I have asked this almost. I have asked this to Taru when we met in October. I have asked this to Anupam. I have asked this to founder of Matrimony. I have asked this to Hitesh. And convincing answer नहीं मिला अभी तक. One most convincing answer जो लगा was कि यार because too many players, small अभी penetration, see it's a nascent industry, right? At least the तो दो parts हैं इस industry के. One is matchmaking, which was till few years ago primarily driven by parents. ठीक है, तो वहाँ पे अभी वो शिफ्ट हो रहा है कि पेरेंट्स से बच्चों की तरफ जा रहा है, राइट? तो अभी वो शिफ्ट हो रहा है तो मार्केट कैसे ग्रो होएगी, क्योंकि नए पेरेंट्स आ नहीं रहे. एंड एनीवे दैट डेमोग्राफी इज अ रिड्यूसिंग डेमोग्राफी. जो डेमोग्राफी अपनी इंडिया की अगर देखो तो वी आर द मीडियन एज ही 29 की है, राइट? तो अब यहाँ वाले जो लोग हैं ये क्या कर रहे हैं, ये अभी धीरे धीरे डेटिंग पे आ रहे हैं. डेटिंग ऐसे अभी ऐसा ही सेट, राइट? 2014 में वी वर फाइटिंग कि यार डेटिंग बोलना चाहिए कि मैच मेकिंग बोलना चाहिए, बजरंग दल वाले तो नहीं आ जाएंगे, राइट? इनफैक्ट हमने 1 अप्रैल को प्रैंक भी हम लोगों ने एक बार यही किया कि आ गए, राइट? एंड
अभी नॉर्मलाइज हो गया, अभी नॉर्मलाइज हो गया.
अभी उतना नॉर्मलाइज नहीं हुआ है, आई वुड से.
There is no word for
तो
dating in
affair
it.
चल रहा है ना, affair चल रहा है means something really horrible.
There is no word for dating in any Indian language. It is
Yeah.
not.
I wonder why.
It is just not.
नहीं,
there.
and not just Indian,
normalized
even जैसे we are
Courtship
live
है.
in Indonesia, भाषा में भी कोई डेटिंग का वर्ड ही नहीं है, राइट? तो हम लोग देख रहे थे यार एसईओ में क्या कीवर्ड यूज करे, देयर वाज नथिंग डेटिंग का.
That's the thing. Love का word है.
सिर्फ
Friendship का
कुवारा
word है.
कुवारी, हिंदी में भी देखो कुवारा
love का
कुवारी
word
is
हमेशा
the
होता है. And every language, the most primitive language, there is a word and there is a symbol for love.
Yes.
Because that is a core need. And the one, in Tinder, when I joined back in the day, I was like, who is using Tinder? Because the app launched like end of 2012, early 13 in the world globally. And I was like 13, I went to the US. So 13 to 15, I was in US. And I'd seen my friends use it, right? My best friend who used to sit next to me in B school was on Tinder all day. And then I came back to India in 15 and I'm like, hey, India mein Tinder? Like they're looking for something, like who's using it, right? And anyway, somehow I got into it. And the one thing I realized very quickly is everywhere in the world, somebody is using it. Every single country in the world. This app is 2 years old. Why? They've not marketed. They don't even know where their users are, how they are coming. They've not marketed. कुछ नहीं किया. And this could be as culturally different as possible. So we are talking about a cultural evolution within India and
orthodox at that time, yeah.
every country in the world. Saudi Arabia also has users. Brazil also has users. Russia also. Every country. So culturally, there is a whole range, right? How is it being used? Because at the core of it is a very human need of connection and love and companionship. That is culture agnostic, time agnostic. 1 century later, AI can take over the world. We will still want humans.
But tell me, Taru, when you joined Tinder, at that time it would have been a very orthodox market in India, right? Conservative market. So how did you grow
Because I figured that there are people who use it and love it. And I was like, who are these people? And I've spent like 2 months trying to talk
I think
to
the
them.
trend that has emerged is that people are now okay admitting it in public.
Yeah, that's the
Then the need was there, right? And need for companionship has been there forever. Even in 2011, 2012, at that time, apps like Shaadi and Jeevansathi or platforms like Shaadi and Jeevansathi were where Tinder member are today, or maybe were a few years ago. People weren't ready to accept that they were in Jeevansathi. In fact, today we go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, we see enough families where they say we will not put our daughter's photo up on the web, right? And so there are questions around privacy, questions around how
Safety
and all that, right? The trend, the need has been there. I think social acceptance takes time.
Correct.
And I think that what we've also seen is that there is a clear also trend of social acceptance following technology adoption. So when Jio came in India and the internet sort of on mobile became a big thing, it was a huge sort of growth lever for most platforms. And then but the first thing people use is Facebook and WhatsApp and things like this. And slowly, as these things become more daily usage for them, they start using more lifestyle products on the internet. And dating and matrimony slightly evolved in that sense because they're also not the most easiest to do. At least for matchmaking, matrimony, I can say that. Dating apps were a lot simpler. Swipe right, swipe left. But matrimony apps are designed to be long forms because you wanted to check for intent and all that. So it takes a while, but the need was there. It was just that adoption happened when people saw people around them using it.
So one thing we've established is that the culture of dating has picked up in a big way. It's become a bit normalized now, even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? People are okay with it. As dating apps, user base has gone up, have you seen matrimonial apps user base decrease a bit? I mean, does one cannibalize the other or does it work in tandem?
We now have a dating app as well. And so, and we have some sense of the industry also, but I can talk about from a matrimony perspective. No, not at all, right? Actually, because,
But is there more growth in dating apps than in matrimony?
Yes, but this is on a smaller base, right? So from a user standpoint. See, the other thing with matrimony is that because it's high intent or higher intent, these apps tend to monetize better, right?
So ARPU of Bharat Matrimony is, I think, 5,000 rupees versus
average transaction
dating.
size, correct. So, these apps will typically make a lot more money because there is clear intent, right? People are, and also, there are 2 or 3 things here. One is parental involvement. Parents are, more serious. Then there is the fact that, typically in India now, people are looking at partnerships for marriage or serious relationships at the age of, say, 28, 29, 30. At that time, your income is slightly higher. You can afford 2,000 a month sort of a subscription, which most 18-year-olds in India are not okay with.
Correct.
They don't have that money.
So from that perspective, it's a different space. Having said that, we believe that, when we have people who are on IL, who are on Jeevansathi, we have people who've used Tinder and come to Jeevansathi.
There's people on both.
And there are people who do on both.
Yeah.
And then there are combinations like, my father is looking at for somebody, for me on Jeevansathi, I am on Bombay, for example. Right? So,
इसे तुम खुद ढूंढ लो वरना हम भी बायोडेटा तुम्हारा
and then there are different, casual dating, serious dating. So casual से जब आप graduate करोगे तो आप शायद serious dating पे जाओगे and साथ में आपके parents आपका matrimony में या खुद भी आप कि यार and I think एक बंदा 2 से 3 apps रखता है.
Correct.
Even dating में भी multiple रखता है, matrimony में भी रखता है.
reality of the times.
Exactly.
Right? So we our products, at least matrimony side, our products were designed for parents, right? And in the last 10 years, one big trend has been that they're now designed for prospects, right? Parents still use them. And now you're trying to build more personalized experience for each user set because we have this duality of user base.
And now I think parents also, we were discussing that, right? Now as more nuclear families increase, parents also don't have that network to introduce you to anyone.
Correct,
So
correct.
they're like, तुम ढूंढ लो.
And what
यार
we
more
see-
than network because अभी वो kids भी नहीं सुन रहे ना उनकी वैसे. But if you have seen the show called Big Bang Theory, right? उसके last season में वो राज the Indian guy वो tells his father कि यार आप मेरे लिए arrange marriage के लिए ढूंढ दो. To which his father replies कि what do you think I can go to a friend of mine and ask for a daughter's hand? It is not 2015 anymore. Right? So that's a documented on US pop culture कि how India has changed socio-culturally.
I think another proxy is if you look at the matchmaking industry also exists offline. There is an offline industry. It's quite big. It's quite fragmented. So if you think of matchmaking, you have to think of the whole thing. People are spending actually a lot more money on average on ticket size going to offline marriage,
Marriage bureaus.
classifieds and bureaus and matchmakers of different shapes
Yeah, so
and sizes.
market तो
right?
बहुत बड़ी है. So अगले
People pay
15
10 lakh
साल में
rupees, to
Correct,
one
correct.
person, right? Because what will you pay for your soulmate?
Depending on your socio-economic...
You're going to
position
spend
also.
2 crore rupees on a wedding, 10 lakh rupees for the person you're going to marry is a steal. Right? So people
ये
do that.
कुछ लोग तो percentage of वो भी when they ask you कि कितना खर्चने वाले हो शादी में and 1% of that amount is their success fee.
Event.
both sides.
But I'm saying people spend
but interesting trends emerge, right? For example, we're talking about those people who turned 18 now. Younger, even earlier, right? We're seeing that, their parents are they've seen this process of dating or at least finding partners on their own. So they oftentimes, they are wingmen for their children. Like, you have a lot of these users who's, well, when you do a research, so my mother comes and sits with them and say, "Beti use kariye." I just say, "Ki theek lag raha hai ki nahi."
Oh, wow.
Right?
साथ
It's
में
a
बैठते
dual
हैं.
approval system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dual,
And
दोनों का, दोनों
it's
का.
not a parental approval thing there. It's more a question of they're sort of figuring out together if that works.
जैसे
for
dating
us.
app पे दो दोस्त
That's how
बैठ
the
के
parent-child
देख रहे होते हैं.
relationship has also changed in the last 10 years.
I think-
So much is changing.
So I think even relationships, right? There are no set gender roles. There is no कि यार तुम kitchen का काम करोगे, तुम पैसा कमा के लाओगे.
Yeah, as Mallika was
Right?
saying about her
So
sister, right?
if relationships dynamics are changing so much, the means of finding those relationships will also change.
Correct.
I
Right?
think the only thing you have to realize is it's like there is this, we're a very heterogeneous country. So change happens at different paces in,
Yeah.
parts of society.
Yeah,
so some will be stuck still the same way, what we call it. Some relationships and people, I often used to joke ki like throughout 90s and 2000s and all, we spent a lot of time as a society educating our girls. You can be anyone you want, and we only talk to girls and parents of girls. Don't settle, blah blah blah. We forgot to talk to the boys as a society. So the boys are like, मेरी मम्मी मेरा घर चलाती थी, अब मेरी बीवी चलाएगी. They haven't reset their expectation, and they come and what she's saying, you end up with these weird people who get this shock when they get into the dating market and the marriage market of this girls' expectations have changed because women are like, I can have it all. Men didn't internalize it. Nobody talked to them. So nobody beat out the patriarchy from them. So they have no idea घर कैसे चलता है. So we've even had cases where people date the same person. They like this girlfriend. I went to college with her. She's the same person as me. Like we knew each other. Somehow I assumed the day I'll get married, she'll get transformed into a different human being who knows how to cook and clean. But that didn't happen, and now it's a cause of discord because I
Is that
actually
what you
never
face?
researched.
Is that what you face a lot?
100%. Like I have all these batchmates. A lot of these so-called eligible boys, and eligible के नाम पे उनके पास पैसा है, right? Because that was what was eligible. They are single AF because no girl, the best of girls, they're like, I don't want this man child. तुम एक पर्दा खुद से नहीं choose कर सकते अपनी मम्मी को 10 बार कॉल किए बगैर. I don't want this, I would rather choose the pain of loneliness. Because pain तो दोनों तरफ है ना. What pain are you choosing? The pain of this headache of a companionship or the pain of चलो थोड़ा अकेला लगता है but at least हर decision मैं खुद से लेती हूँ.
It's both sides. So I think, and that's why these relationships are also like back and forth and as a society also. So you pull one side pulls too much and the other side starts pulling. Women have been asking men to do better, step up. Then men are like, okay, then you cannot have the optionality. I mean, whatever. Like, so it's a negotiation in a way. So each relationship is a negotiation, but also as a society you go back and forth with your parents. Parents go back and forth with the expectations of the society. And within each relationship. So I think it doesn't change overnight. So we are business people, we like graphs that just go in some thing there, but it has not been that long. It's not even been 10 years, right?
So there is still a lot of
So
headwinds.
hence just the 2.2% penetration.
The
right?
penetration, the pace of change, and it's a very individual change. And
So
it takes
2%
time.
penetration is in the dating market right
the
now.
dating market.
Okay. And matrimonial?
So like he's talking revenue, so you can make a lot more money, basically because you can unlock value. Like we haven't as an industry scratched the surface
Yeah, plus
of...
matrimony is such an old industry. Like even Jeevansathi was 2005, I guess, 20-year-old brand now. So paying percentage, for example, matrimony.com is 15% paying at a ARPU of 5,000 rupees.
One way of
But I think
capturing value.
the reality is that we're still scratching the surface, and there are many reasons for
And
that.
it is more of a when, not if.
Even in matrimony, dating, of course, is it's evolving. Even in matrimony, it remains an unsolved problem. See, if you want to find a partner today, it's not easy, right? And the reason, and there are many reasons, and as product teams, we try and solve for many of them. But it is, for example, there's no easy way for you to find a reference. One of the reasons why people used to get married earlier to arranged marriages was because there was at least some family member, some friend, some relative who knew the other family very well.
Correct.
So you knew what you were getting into, right? Even if it was an arranged setup. Online, it's not easy.
अभी कोई वो responsibility भी नहीं लेना चाहता.
See, that is the problem.
Because so many marriages are
Exactly.
failing. Yeah.
Exactly. So there
यार
is a
पहले भी fail होती थी.
good
नहीं. See, fail पहले भी होती थी. वो internally fail होती थी. वो कभी लड़की के पास choice नहीं होती थी divorce मांगने का.
और पता नहीं चलता था.
Exactly. वो बाहर नहीं आता था. वो अंदर ही अंदर यार कि भाई अच्छा घर तो संभालना ही है, बच्चों के लिए कर लो. वो सब चलता रहता था. But वो पहले failure बाहर नहीं आता था, बस बाहर आ जाता है.
A lot of these platforms try to do.
Screen गिर चुकी है of a good family. You could send your kids to Doon school. You could send them wherever. You could still be pathetic people,
Yeah.
like, you know, patriarchal.
Yeah.
You could still be that. So I
So,
think
you know, if you find, a
disillusionment.
lot of these platforms try to do, have you also tried psychographic matching, something to tell you who the real person is, and I don't think we've made a lot of progress there, right? I think,
Do you
as
guys
Mallika
reject
said,
a lot of profiles? I know
42%.
TrulyMadly does.
yeah, of course, there's a strong,
40%
42%
of profiles rejected, mostly men.
mostly.
no, I think, there are, so there's this bias there, right? Because, 2 or 3 reasons. One, it's true that percentage of men on the platform who are for
यार
dubious
लड़की
reasons.
किसी को जाके डिक पिक नहीं भेज रही ना,
Yeah, see, dating
राइट?
problems
वो
अलग हैं.
बायस नहीं है, वो ट्रू है, मतलब वो
No, I'm not saying
लड़कों का
that.
बिहेवियर
I'm
खराब
saying the
है.
bias is also because the percentage of females coming on dating platforms in India is very low. Right?
यार वो तो
So-
इंडिया इंटरनेट का ही लो है. फेसबुक
Correct.
इंडिया इज 23%.
Correct. So, for example, Matrimony, because they were parents, they get around 35-40% females.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what do you guys reject mostly on?
Behavior on the platform, what kind of reporting is getting, what girls are reporting you on. Mostly messages या खराब होते हैं, या फिर प्रोफाइल बनाते हुए ही गंद लिख दिया है. So, and we have a AI check also which filters all of this in instance, and कुछ भी किसी सेलिब्रिटी की फोटो डाल के प्रोफाइल बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, किसी इन्फ्लुएंसर की फोटो डाल के प्रोफाइल. एंड नाउ विद AI these things are very easy to check. So we have our proprietary chalk AI dar बोलते, it's a gatekeeper algo, and it runs on 5 parameters. First it check there should be a human face in the photo, because unlike other apps you will never see a photo of a cat or a dog or a good morning wallpaper on TrulyMadly, right? Then it checks there should be that human face should not be of a celebrity. For some reason Modi ji and Kohli की फोटो
विराट कोहली फोटो डाल दिया और किसी ने select भी कर लिया होगा.
हाँ, नहीं वो हम कभी प्रोफाइल सामने दिखती नहीं है वो वाली, राइट? देन देयर शुड बी नथिंग रिटन ऑन that photo, and then there should be of course no obscenity in the photo, and then you should, for example, if you have written you are a male, हमें फोटो से भी मेल ही होने चाहिए होता, राइट? सो ये सब तो प्रीलिमिनरी रिजेक्ट्स हो जाते हैं. देन आफ्टर दैट इट्स ऑल अपॉन योर बिहेवियर, कि व्हाट आर यू सेंडिंग मैसेजेस, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ बैड कीवर्ड्स यू आर यूजिंग इन द कॉन्वर्जेशन, और व्हाट काइंड ऑफ रिपोर्ट्स वी आर गेटिंग अगेंस्ट यू. तो वो सब कुछ मिला के around 42% we reject.
So do you think that is what sets you apart from, because I understand you're trying to create a niche between like larger players like Tinder and Bumble on one hand, and on the other hand matrimonial sites like
Yeah,
Jeevansathi.
that always used to be, we are trying to create a market in between.
Correct. You think this is one of the reasons which helped you get there? Because you
Yeah,
guys
for sure,
recently
because-
raised money as well, na?
Yes, we have, not as much as we would have wanted to, but I think nobody has as much as they would have wanted. But see, that is not that is just because the market is there, right? Not because how people are behaving on the platform, but mainly I think question remains what kind of behavior is accepted on a particular platform, because we wanted कि यार we are curating only high intent singles who want to find a life partner, and as our tagline is start your love story, right? So idea was कि यार arrange marriage में, and we could figure कि यार arrange marriage अब वो थोड़ा taboo बनता जा रहा है, कि people lie to their friends, even if arrange marriage है, they lie to their friends कि नहीं arrange नहीं है, love marriage है. And बहुत सारे लोग मतलब arrange भी होते हैं, हाँ मतलब arranged कम love थी, मिलवा पेरेंट्स ने दिया, फिर हमने 2 महीने कोर्टशिप, वो होता ही नहीं है, तुम्हारे पास ऑप्शन थोड़ी होता है, वो आप वहाँ से पीछे होने का.
इंस्टा पे फोटो तो कपल वाली डालनी है.
हाँ एग्जैक्टली. उनके प्री वेडिंग शूट्स एंड प्रपोजल्स, यार वो मम्मी ने करा दिया तुम्हारा, यार वो प्रपोजल कैसे है, राइट? एंड एक ये चीज भी है कि जो
कि तुम्हें कोई नहीं मिला कि अरेंज मैरिज करना था, दैट इज स्टिल द कॉन्सेप्ट, राइट?
एग्जैक्टली. एंड प्लस एक और चीज है कि यार लड़कों के लिए ना, सो लड़कियों के लिए अरेंज मैरिज इज
Acceptable.
नहीं, उनके लिए, उनको खुद के मतलब खुद से उनके लिए एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है, बट लड़कों के लिए है कि कोई नहीं मिला तो मम्मी करा ही देंगी ना. तो इट्स काइंड ऑफ लाइक अ सेफ्टी नेट फॉर देम. एंड लड़कियों का होता है ना, उनको तो ये रहता है कि खुद से कोई मिल जाए तो अच्छा है, कि अरेंज मैरिज तो यार मुश्किल हो जाएगी, पता नहीं क्या ही मिलेगा, बिकॉज देयर इज नो वे टू नो, right?
I'm also very interested to know what happens on Raya, because there's like this whole secrecy factor around it and this whole celebrity status and all of that.
Yeah.
What actually goes on?
To be honest, it's not, think of it like a members only club, okay? By the end of it, the entry barrier is money, ठीक है? जिसको हम referral मतलब बोलते हैं, but कोई भी किसी को भी referral दे सकता है largely. Of course, they have their own internal screening process. I don't know who gets through, who doesn't. But for someone like me, that is the only place at this point that I can go on a Hinge, I can go on a Tinder, I can go on like a Bumble or whatever, but I'll be honest, and I don't mean to sound classist or crass or whatever, but that pool, I can't navigate that. Like it's just way too unrefined and unscreened, and it's just anything is happening. Like I was wondering, I'm like, there was one 65-year-old man who was sending me a message on that saying, hi, whatever. I'm like, how has this man, done this? And in a day, I can't possibly go through 100 of these, So somewhere I choose the headache of this Tel Aviv, Turkey, Poland, whatever, karke phir Bandra, and then find somebody else. But by the end of it, chahe Raya hai, chahe koi bhi app hai, the pursuit of love isn't going anywhere. The pursuit of companionship isn't going anywhere. I think the way we arrive at it now comes with more dialogue and less desperation. And and I still look at it as arranged only because as opposed to your parents or whoever arranging it, you are arranging it for yourself. Like I would rather go, like I joined Tinder because like for me, initially I'm that generation jab Tinder shuru hua tha. I was in college in America and I used to see people were hooking up through it, And it was a culture shock for me because मैं आई थी इंडिया से और मैं उधर कॉलेज में थी और Instagram तब शुरू भी नहीं हुआ था.
And you were an introvert.
And I was an introvert. It's when I came back and I was working and I saw one girl from my batch, she got married to some guy she started chatting with on Tinder. I was like, oh, अच्छा ठीक है, मुझे शादी नहीं करनी, but clearly यहाँ creeps नहीं है, तो चलो, let's go. But अब क्या हुआ है कि Jio and all of that, हर app पे, not just a dating or a marriage app, there's too much of too many people on everything. So where a Raya comes in is that, okay, there's less of this here,
But that is why we also do that curation, na? That
हाँ,
is the reason we, because
42% तो आएगा
curation
ही
के
नहीं.
बिना तो मतलब
नहीं हो
possible ही
सकता
नहीं है
curation
यार.
के बिना.
But then what is the difference? If TrulyMadly also does curation, Raya also does curation.
Raya is
then...
doing curation only on one aspect, that is your affluency.
But I think you have to be published.
I think
Your name has
eventually-
to be published
correct.
or something like that. I
There
don't
will
know.
be their positionings, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, it is in the end
Yeah,
a lot
plus
of technology.
basically on
Yeah, in a room
status.
where everybody is a
what-
celebrity, right? Then relatively speaking, everybody is same.
Tinder select होता था ना? वो भी यही था ना?
It is
But यहाँ नहीं आया ना वो.
नहीं, अभी नहीं
हाँ.
है. But yeah, it is
I
the
remember
same.
मैंने आपको पहली बार जब मैं मिली थी आज जो कब आ रहा है?
So it is a thing of, like it's a pool, right? It's a, you could, see, for anyone who wants to do this business is barely started, but it's one of the hardest business there is because it's a C2C business. Yeah. It's consumers on both sides. You don't control either side of the marketplace. So when you try to run this platform, every other platform, you have either an economic or a contractual relationship with at least one side of the platform. You can pay the drivers, you can contract out the vendors, you can license content if you're on Netflix or whatever. So you control one side fully.
Ek side control mein.
And you just have to do the other side. C2C is very hard.
It's emotion to emotion.
Because you don't control either side. Both sides are random in a way, right? And the entire experience is how people behave. Yeah. There are people I know personally who joined Tinder, were married in 8 days. First person I met with kept talking, spent the entire weekend, some like insane story, okay? First person, this is the best thing that ever happened in their life. Great experience. But, I don't know that the first person you're going to match with is going to be a soulmate or the 1000th, right? The probability that he or she is out there is very high because I'm putting all of them on this. So now, the Tinder proposition over time had become, everyone's here. Right, but you have to find the needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
Correct.
Then obviously you can differentiate based on saying only celebrities and popular figures in this room. So only 10 people here. You might find it better, but you might run out of options. So you might have to come back next month to see have 3 people changed.
Also, as a so-called celebrity, you might miss out on some really good people just because you're on one particular. Like I said, you could still be a bad person with a lot of money and affluence, right? And you could miss out on a lovely human being. So. But ये तो गेम है ना, यही तो गेम है, जिंदगी भर यही तो चलता है.
No, but one thing I noticed is that, I mean, Raya or no Raya, right? There are women everywhere want safety. They want to stay away from creeps altogether.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for you, of course,
That is
because
the
of
second constant, which will never change.
that is a second constant.
Good people, good
So,
men.
I find a lot of my friends who are on these apps feel very disgruntled because the minute they switch on the app, there are these 10 creeps who are messaging them.
Absolutely.
So, is there any solution to that problem? Apart from, of course, the filter that you spoke about, but a lot of apps are not doing it, right?
No, every app does it. At different,
Yeah.
Every app. Business cannot survive without it. It's human
Some
behavior.
level of
WhatsApp
moderation to
cannot
सबको ही
survive
करना
if they
पड़ता
don't have an option to do spam and scam now. Because it's human behavior. You don't control who's in. Your face doesn't say you're going to turn out to be whatever, right?
Correct.
Any product at any scale, Instagram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, whatever,
सबको करना
has to fight spam and scam.
यार Instagram पे आप कभी किसी मीम पेज या किसी बड़े पेज पे जाके कमेंट्स देखो कभी क्या कमेंट्स होते हैं
And if you have a
check
every
my
woman
stories
in
पे क्या है ये
every
वो
woman
गंद
in
मचा
this
हुआ है यार
every woman in
मतलब
this country with a public profile knows their DMs.
Yeah.
So like what is like it's not the platform, it's society, right? And at scale, it will always be like that. So
Exactly.
and it's not like offline's any better by the way.
Exactly.
Remember, you and I grew up in this country. You remember walking on this road and not
यार वो
getting
छोड़ो
catcalled and
अगर
teased.
यहाँ पे अभी कोई है नहीं शायद जिसने अरेंज मैरिज डेट्स की हो बहुत सारी यू आस्क एनी गर्ल हु इज हियर जिसने 20 अरेंज मैरिज लड़कों से भी मिली है उसमें से भी 10 क्रीप होंगे
It's
No, online gives
behavior.
you an anonymity to
यार
sort of-
लोग तो वही है ना यार ऑनलाइन इज
also
जस्ट अ
people.
प्लेटफॉर्म
Yeah.
लोग तो वही हैं
And also people just behave differently in different situations sometimes, right? So I
Yeah.
think, plus like also what a lot of people call creepy. Somebody like, you know, this, what's the difference between charming and creepy? Sometimes very thin.
Sometimes it is
right?
wealth.
Sometimes it's looks and wealth. And
But it's said between 50 नहीं but
it's
it's said for
hard,
50
it's a
shades of
hard
grey
line.
if he was not a millionaire
called
he would have been domestic
It's whatever.
Now it's called Delulu.
But
The
you know,
person who thinks
so
they're
not
charming but are
everything
creepy.
is not everything is objectively bad. It's just not something that you are receptive to right now,
No,
or
he's
from
talk-
this person.
No, he's talking about something different. He's saying, Mallika, that if you have money, you can perhaps get away with being a creep.
No, maybe for
यार.
the first sentence. That's
राया पे मुझे एक बहुत ही घटिया इंसान मिला लाइक अगेन वीसी फर्म में काम करता है
कौन सी?
These VCs coming back.
Now you have to tell us which VC
No,
it is.
imagine माँ बाप डॉक्टर so I was like wow I was like आपसे बेहतर क्या हो
हजारी लोग
सकता
हैं।
है this that and you know and literally and we started talking and he's like can I ask for your number I was like yeah sure this that we started chatting and literally when we stopped chatting he sends me a picture of me where I'm wearing some really nice blouse looking really hot and कहता है oh if I saw this picture before a breakfast date would have been the last thing on my mind okay and I'm like चल मैं तुझे ऐसे 4 मौके दूंगी शायद तेरी फ्लर्टिंग गेम ये है मेरी नहीं है मैंने उसको 6 ऐसे मौके दिए एंड विद ईच मौका ही केप्ट गेटिंग डर्टियर एंड डर्टियर एंड डर्टियर एंड मोर डिस्गस्टिंग एंड डिसरिस्पेक्ट
तो मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि ये अगर वीसी ना होता और राया पे ना होता तो क्या आप 6 मौके देते कि एक में ही निकाल देते
हमारा मैच कैसे होता अगर ये राय पे ना होता मैं
नहीं
होती मेरे मैप्स पे
नो नो
you
नहीं, नहीं,
wherever,
any
अगर
other
कहीं और
app.
भी अगर ये कोई
not even has to be a dating app.
कोई ये किसी यू नो
If he didn't have money.
मलाड में रहता हुआ कोई बेचारा लड़का होता
Malad is not my issue
नहीं मैं एग्जांपल बता रहा हूँ
see I would have a screening na for me it's important that you are successful enough to not be insecure of me right I don't want to be like your babysitter, nor do I want to massage your ego. So what you do professionally matters. However, while it matters, it doesn't guarantee that you're a secure person.
Exactly.
You could still be so, imagine he cleared all this thing, na? Acha school, अच्छे माँ बाप, अच्छे ये वो, grew up with a sister.
VC.
So you'd, मतलब whatever, all of that. बताऊंगी. And he turned out to be
IIT भी
the
होगा
hits.
शायद.
नहीं था. I think that is वही मुझे
वही
fraud
कृपा-
पकड़ लेना
वही
चाहिए.
कृपा रुक
कृपा
गई.
रह गई वहीं
But
पे.
this is the thing of online, right? Like you can screen a bunch of things.
Exactly.
At least it happened on
Still
the
you
chat.
can and
Yeah.
Right. You can screen so much.
नहीं plus it is so easy versus meeting this a creep not this person meeting any creep offline
Yeah.
versus meeting a creep online is always safer to meet a creep online
At the end of the day, it's only a
है ना
chat.
और creep तो है ही creep तो हमें पता है पूरे देश में भरे पड़े हैं
I'm saying my physical safety is actually not in danger at any point. All it
exactly
takes is
so
blocking.
it is much safer even
Yeah.
COVID wise
So
and
much
you know
control.
वैसे भी it is a more safer medium to meet first online
Part of the reason why women love these products is because they have control and they can do that screening. You know, when they're safer, I'm behind the screen, right? And I can talk to you and I can figure some stuff out because if I'm sitting right in front of you on a blind date or a speed date or whatever those alternatives used to be, dude, where do I go? It's awkward. There's real fear of rejection. You don't know how aggressive the person is going to be if I walk out of them. That person probably knows where I work or live or something, has a lot more context and can chase me. So online just empowers me and allows me to screen 10 people who look okay on paper or whatever.
them at arm's
It is
length.
some
And
screening
figure
feature.
Short also.
Yeah, and then get to one.
so on TM you cannot even take a screenshot
And you know, Raya, you can't. But then you move to WhatsApp, And that's when they show their colors, na? So then
So you have that. And
This
that
seems very hectic.
it is. Tabhi to main single hi best.
But out of all of
Coffee
us,
honey.
apart from Mallika, Snehil's been on dating apps, right? You were
Yeah.
telling us that did you meet your wife there?
I met her because of a dating app, because of TrulyMadly,
Okay.
not on TrulyMadly. But yeah, we met on Facebook because she mistakenly sent me a friend request, thinking because so she's a junior from ID Delhi,
my college.
Taru ki, and I think same hostel या कुछ
Yeah,
भी
same
था, right? तो and some other guy named Snehil, and it's a unique name, right? तो वो मेरे को बोलती है ऐसा, मैं कहता हूँ नहीं झूठ है वो, बट हर वर्जन ऑफ द स्टोरी कि शी वाज सेंडिंग अ फ्रेंड रिक्वेस्ट टू हिम एंड गलती से मेरे को आ गई, फिर उसके बाद अब मेरे को आ गई थी फ्रेंड,
This is what he said earlier.
उसके बाद मेरी परसिस्टेंस है.
कुछ नहीं कर सकते अगर गेम ना हो. I can tell.
he was like, girls outside my league messaging me first. I got it.
Let's get to it. But before that,
Yeah,
were you
please,
on? Before that, were you on dating apps? Were you meeting people?
I have been on I think 20-30 dating apps because I was when we were creating TrulyMadly, इंडिया में तो कोई प्रेसिडेंसी नहीं था अच्छी ऐप का, राइट? ऐप थी भी नहीं, जो वेबसाइट्स भी थी तो थी एप्स, बिकॉज 2013-2014 में एप्स भी नहीं थी, राइट?
तो बिजनेस करते करते मार्केट रिसर्च भी हो गया ऐसे.
हाँ, मार्केट रिसर्च ही कर रहा था मैं तो, उसमें फिर कुछ लोग मिले, मेड सम गुड फ्रेंड्स आल्सो, राइट? एंड तब बट एंड these were early adopters, right? So girls from SRCC, DU, etc. These were the early adopters. They were using eHarmony और OkCupid उस टाइम पे ऑलरेडी था, तो इंडिया में कुछ लोग यूज करते थे, right? Then there was this
Chocolate and bake. Coffee
Coffee
and
and
bake.
bake.
नहीं वो तब नहीं
That
थी
was
शायद.
recent.
हाँ,
Yeah.
yeah, because this I'm talking 2012-13 क्योंकि मार्केट रिसर्च तब शुरू कर दी थी हमने. तब eHarmony I think काफी बड़ा था.
OkCupid and
Chemistry and
OkCupid was first
Match.com थे.
product from
OkCupid था.
OkCupid was here quite a bit
Yeah.
because
Then Facebook पे कौन सा होता था वो? Zusk या कुछ है ना?
So now, what are the most popular apps? Not apart from, of course, Tinder, Bumble. What else? What are people using?
Hinge. A lot of people
It
use
has
Hinge.
become very popular.
But then again,
What are they doing differently?
But is it true for tier 2 and tier 3? मतलब pan India or just tier 1?
intent है ना, मतलब like also a match group product, so
Yeah.
I know Hinge quite well. I mean, I can't talk too much on the users, but doing well. Again, organic, very strong network effects, good product market fit, doing really well actually.
But for example, we saw that Hinge marketed very heavily in Europe and US. So when you do that for a global product in some other part of the world, do you see its dividends coming in this part of the world also?
I think social products always, right? Consumer social is that kind of a category, is network effect. So it goes by word of mouth at the end of the day. Your dating app also ultimately goes by word of mouth. Somebody tells you.
Yeah,
correct.
So Hinges, for that matter, Bumble or Tinder or Raya, all of these products, you don't necessarily have to market. If your product delivers value, it picks up. Like that's the nature of consumer social. Of course, the bar keeps getting higher as opposed to the early days of the app world. But that's how this works. And so it's quite popular, does quite well, and so it attracts people. Lots of people are trying different approaches. Like my personal belief is like the category has reached a certain sort of maturity level, and so I think it is like historically this is when it should get disrupted by different form factors. Something that expands the market, something that pushes either the experience of it or the interaction of it, or it brings new users. That will happen, like inevitable. So we are a very entrepreneurial country and different people are trying different things. Something will work.
Is there a very big market also for divorcees? Because, I mean, as Mallika was also pointing out, a lot of people are now, a lot of millennials are getting
Because
divorced.
it's a
Lots of
niche,
niches, like
and it's a high-paying niche.
Yeah.
Paying
Across-
percentage and ARPU is very high, and but the base is very small.
But I'm saying,
growing.
look, I think there is demand
Is
in
it growing a lot?
every niche you pick. There's growth, right? There is growth in small cities where people cannot date openly, freely, but they want to date, so they will go on dating apps. There is older people, there's people over 50, people over 60. 20% of new users are from the LGBTQ community. A lot of them are not out in public, but dating apps is the only way to identify other members of the community. Huge.
Correct.
So lots of niches, but people are people. Like at the end of the day, you realize the need for companionship is the same.
Yeah.
It manifests differently, or what sort of checklists I have, what sort of concerns I have, what I filter for can change based on my context, right? So for somebody, again, for her XYZ is important for me, something else for a 20-year-old in a tier 4 city, something else might be important. The criteria might change, the modality, what is aspirational might change, but love is big. And the one thing that's changed in this country is we were always a, very larger than life society. If you look at every Bollywood movie, it's about celebration of this very larger than life love. Except that for a lot of our time, we used to believe it's not for us. So we used to watch it on the big screen and say, ये reality में नहीं होता है.
Aspiration तो है ना.
And now what has changed is why not? Right? Why can't I also have that love? And that self-belief is there in this generation. So like I want it.
this other route though. I've become very cynical. I grew up thinking that love story वैसी होगी. But I've gone completely the other route and I see that cynicism or maybe being jaded or whatever is there in people around me also, where it's like कि वो जो पहले तो हमने कैसे हमें बेवकूफ बनाया, हम एक बार जीते एक बार मरते तक ठीक था. शादी भी एक बार होती है, प्यार भी एक बार होता है.
वो तो जिसने ये बोला था उसने भी तो that movie तो वो तो
What I'm saying is that people's belief that this can happen to me has changed. In the 70s, 80s, people didn't believe even deep down that I can get this. So मेरी शादी तो वैसे ही
so aspirational हमेशा से रहा है.
Like that.
नहीं, aspirational. So I always say this कि यार इंडिया में एक प्रॉब्लम है ना जो डेटिंग को लेके कि लव मैरिजेस तो एस्पिरेशनल है बट डेटिंग हैज बीन अ टैबू एंड देयर इज नो वे टू डू अ लव मैरिज without dating. So I was pitching to one investor in Dubai and he was a Jain fellow and very religious and spiritual and he said कि यार अच्छा लग रहा है बट ना थोड़ा sin टाइप फीलिंग आ रही है. तो मैंने कहा कि सर आपकी अरेंज मैरिज है कि लव मैरिज है? वेरी वेरी प्राउडली लव मैरिज है. मैं कहा फिर सर डेट तो आपने भी किया है? नहीं मैंने कहा किया है. सर फिर जब आप शादी नहीं हुई थी और उससे पहले मिलते थे तो क्या कर रहे थे? एंड ही वाज लाइक कि अच्छा.
Dating is a word, right? I think that's the problem.
तो वो किसी को सिखाना पड़ेगा कि यार लव मैरिज करनी है तो डेट तो करना ही पड़ेगा. There is no path that goes towards love marriage without dating.
I think countries find their context though. Exactly. For example, we see a lot of this happening on our platforms also. Even on Jeevansathi. In fact, if you ask me, 20-30% of the marriages that are happening, parents are involved. Right? And they don't call it dating. They just said, I went and met somebody I wanted, and then there is a courtship period. And this is what was always been the case. It's just that, India, people just don't want to call it dating. It's seen, there's some negative context to it.
There's just no word for it. That's all. Matlab, we have Swayamvar word. What is that? It's
स्वयंवर है यार. अगर देखो अल्टीमेटली लड़कियां ही ड्राइव करती है प्लेटफॉर्म को.
मतलब
राइट क्योंकि लड़के तो हर प्रोफाइल को लाइक करते हो. अगर मैं हमारे नंबर्स बताऊं तो guys like 90% of the profiles that are shown to them. Girls used to like just 6%. बहुत मेहनत करके अभी हम इसको 14% पे लेके आए हैं.
Guys have really low expectations.
नहीं. It's not expect. उनको पता है उनके हाथ में नहीं है. So they filter out जब मैच आ जाता है. यार जब मैच आ जाएगा तब मैं देखूंगा कि क्योंकि मेरे को पता है कि यार पहले तो सबको कर दो. Throw enough things on the wall.
On an average, a dating guy.
And then we'll see कि यार इससे बात करनी है कि नहीं करनी. On the other hand, लड़कियों के every like that I'll do will convert into a match. Correct. Right? So she's scared at doing the pressing that like button.
I don't think that's an online only thing. Offline में ऐसे ही होता है.
बिल्कुल.
If you put a guy in a bar with 100 attractive girls, कितनी अच्छी लग रही है, he will say 50, 60.
हाँ, तभी तो
and he'll say, I'll talk to them.
होते ना तभी तो.
And if you allow a 5-minute conversation, he will say 5 after they're talking to 50. You do that same thing with a girl, she will say 10. And then after that 5-minute conversation, say 5. We are just hardwired differently as to how we pick. Women go narrower and deeper.
Experiences we face.
No, it's just how we evaluate, multiple things. Men just genetically on an average start with a wider funnel and get selective after. That's just how we are. So वो offline
Safety तो है
नहीं यार मेरे को लगता है वो ना उल्टा है.
They're never threatened. They never
No वो ना because see look at colleges, look at schools, gender ratio इतना खराब रहता है हमेशा ही. तो वो लड़कों को ना मेरे ख्याल से वो वहीं से ही वो होता है कि यार अपने हाथ में
इंडिया ओनली फेनोमेनन ही नहीं है यार. एवरीवेयर इन द वर्ल्ड इट्स अ वेरी ह्यूमन थिंग.
इंडोनेशिया में भी सी अ वेरी डिफरेंट डेटा.
ऐसा ही होता है.
What is the data
change
like
a
in
little
Indonesia?
bit.
यार इंडोनेशिया में तो बिना मेहनत के पहले तो आपका 50-50 मेल फीमेल बन जाता है.
That's the
विदाउट एनी
internet.
बिकॉज वहाँ पे ना डेटिंग इज नॉट अ
Taboo.
It is not a taboo or it is not something special also because it is very normal. It is normalized for them.
Correct.
Right? Like it कि हाँ मतलब करेंगे ही of course. तो वहाँ पे जब ना फिर जब हम usage patterns देखते हैं.
Like it is in the West, right?
Yes, you can say yes. But क्योंकि मेरे को वहाँ का डेटा नहीं पता, वहाँ पे we are only live for Indians, but Indonesia में we are live for Indonesians also.
Okay.
Right? So that we see it's a very different behavior altogether. वहाँ पे ये scarceness भी नहीं है कि लड़कियाँ बहुत चुन के लाइक कर रही हैं और ना ही लड़कों की तरफ से इतना डेस्परेशन है कि 90% को ही लाइक कर दे रहे हैं, राइट?
Yeah, I
तो
think I agree
वो
with him.
डिफरेंस है.
See, I think on our platforms in India, a guy is likely to get, I think, 5%, on the dating apps maybe even lower, number of girls to respond to the interest positively. Right?
Even on a subscription model.
Even on whatever, you reach out to 100 people, 5 girls are likely to like you, right? Wow. And the girls' number is very different, as you can imagine, right? So I don't know, where is this coming from? It could be true offline too.
I'm saying it's hardwired. Now platforms exaggerate it, right? So a lot of markets are, because of the nature of internet, like I used to run Thailand, I used to run Turkey, all of these markets have much better gender ratio. You go to Russia, Sweden, you know, more women than men. So that will change. So platforms will make it worse. But the nature of how people, like even in Indonesia, it's different across age groups because age of marriage is very different.
Yeah.
The context is different. They actually do get married younger. Being a 30-year-old female in Indonesia is probably more of an issue than in India today. So all of those things also happen.
Because they are 5-7 years behind us also.
The cultural things also there, but there's also just how selective, and then how, and again we're talking average. So obviously there's a distribution.
Yeah.
There's a, you know, the average typical behavior is changed. It changes completely in, you know, like same gender relationships, right? Completely changed, completely changed behavior, all of that. So at the end, it's human, and obviously online interacts, but in some ways it's people wanting control. So this is sort of mix between choice and control. I want to have a lot of choice, but I want to like sort of exhibit control over who I talk to, when do I talk to, how much I respond, and how. So that's what we say. Women go much deeper into profiles before they swipe right. So part of the reason is that they will read through. So if you have not written a bio, you're not getting swipe right. As simple, like, you know, things like that. Men don't do that, so they don't remember to do that for themselves also.
Correct.
Right.
I want to understand what is the future, right? So Mallika was telling us how marriage really doesn't feature in a scheme of things right now. For a lot of people,
But let me tell you a
they
number.
just want a solution to their loneliness.
No, but even the marriage thing, in next 15 years, India is going to have 800 million weddings. Sorry, 400 million weddings and 800 million people getting married in next 15 years, right? So 80 crore लोग अगले 15 साल में इंडिया में शादी करेंगे, right? तो वो it is going to remain. Some people will be, you know, on some edge, some will be other, but वो बहुत छोटा percentage रहेगा. शादियां तो होंगी. There is no.
Someone who wants to invest in this space, would you? I mean, of course, there's a bias that I'm asking you with, but dispassionately. Is there a lot of scope in matrimony, in dating, or in friendship apps, which I feel is a big gap in this industry now?
यार मेरा पर्सपेक्टिव फ्रेंडशिप एप्स को लेके तो थोड़ा वो है कि मतलब सी इवन इन डेटिंग, सो अर्लियर व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड फर्स्ट 4-5 years वी वर फोकस्ड ऑन 18 to 24. रेवेन्यू ही नहीं बनता था, राइट? एंड देन आई टुक ओवर द कंपनी इन 2019 एज अ co-founder and CEO. आई लुक्ड एट डेटा एंड आई सॉ कि यार 18 to 23-24 तो ऑलमोस्ट नेग्लिजिबल पेइंग परसेंट, नेग्लिजिबल आरपू. 24 to 26-27 still something there. Needle actually starts moving after 27, and then as you keep going up in age, both paying percentage and average revenue per paying user kept on increasing. So friendship wala use case a 27-28-year-old will not go into, right? If business banana hai, revenue wala धंधा बनाना है, तो you will have to go where consumer has money. Like he was also saying, right? या तो parents से पैसा आएगा, या फिर अगर जो prospect खुद उस age का है कि अब पैसा है जेब में, right? Because आप 24 के बाद तो कमाना शुरू करते हो देश में. तब पहले आप 2-3 लाख रुपए ही साल का कमा रहे हो.
I disagree with that. Tinder's entire business was built on under 25-year-olds.
Yes,
the
so
most
that's
successful
a very different
thing.
use case, but
but
Tinder का
every
ना
use
जो
case, very large.
value add of the hopium is very different.
But I'm saying it's a function of platform, right? And again, that's why I'm saying that from a future perspective, which is what you're asking, I think there's tons of opportunity everywhere. You just crash the service. You're asked, why are we picking? There's a huge, gigantic thing still waiting to happen. So, and people will try, and 10 attempts will be made, and something will succeed. It has to happen.
It's a large population.
It's very large, and not. And why just think?
So, what's your next step going to be?
Another episode of this podcast we can discuss.
Season 2 में बताएंगे.
Okay, on that note, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching the Next Level podcast. Until we meet again, have a great day.